Grenier. Seeds from the ruins of the old orb, swallowing colonies whole.
I know where she hides the Tenno heart. A womb in the sky, forbidden to my kind.
Teshin?
You shouldn't have come here. You have ruined us both.
Harrowed stars of hallowed chains. Speak.
What led us here? You did. You vile blasphemies. Machines thinking, breeding. There's a new promised land. But when you arrived at that distant world, you knew that in time, we were into it as well, as we had to earn.
Again.
On your first day of service, you aspired to be worthy of me. I only wish that I could have been worthy of you, my lord.
These gifts you have, a piece of me, given freely. But those before you, they did not ask. They butchered me. My flesh fed their greed.
I'm so sorry.
Tau is in sight. It will not be the place that you or I remember.
Welcome to the Warframe Timeline 2026. By the end of this video, you will know the information contained in 25 plus quests and more. This is not an emotional retelling, but a way to track all we've learned. This video will be iterated upon for years to come. Every January, we will track what has happened in the past year in Warframe's lore, slowly adding more information that you, the community, deem to be necessary in the timeline. More importantly, with your support of the video itself, audio and visual quality will increase. Due to the nature of Warframe, Quest's order is to be ignored to provide an accurate retelling of events. The reason being is that most of Warframe's story happened before you. We as a community are still trying to figure out what happened all those millennia ago. Instances of time travel will be told twice for the utmost clarity of not only when they happened, but why and how they happened. Every concept will be explained for clarity when mentioned and touched upon again or briefly explained. Warframe takes place in an alternate universe similar to our own, at least in how it begins. Sometime before the late 1900s, the outbreak of a virus that has the capability to spread through man and machine sent the world into chaos. Technocyte, or tech rot. A few infected individuals meet a mysterious man that would cure them of the sickness with another of his own. Though as quick as he appeared, he vanished. A local military assembly named the Skaldra enforced a quarantine in the city-state of Holvania. The conflict between the Hex, the individuals now imbued with a weaponized infection, and Skaldra rises as tensions brew. But the climax of this story lies in the future and the past. After at least 18 radiation wars, a cast of highly advanced genetic engineers and scientists would lay claim over the solar system. They were as powerful as they were weak, as prideful as they were arrogant. They conducted excessive experiments on not only nature but themselves, and the people they ruled over. Excess was the motto of these gilded overlords. Such excess that even their hierarchy reflected it. Such excess that their names would bear it. The Kin of Gold, Orokin. It is impossible to tell the exact time period of each event during the age of the Orokin Empire, so the utilization of a custom naming convention became necessary. Lith, Stone, Meso, Middle, Neo, New, Axi, Zenith. The Lith Era. The Orokin Emperors were the will of the Empire, and right under them were the 7 executors. Judges that would carry out the absolute will of the Emperors. Ballas, Avantis, NATAH, Tuval, Nihil, Karish, Tormi. There's even mention of an executor named Skarn, currently the only known executors to date. Archimedeans were renowned Orokin scientists, carrying out research for research's sake, discovering things they had no business laying eyes on. Wanderlust. They were immortal, as well as their families. Royalty, dying with the sun. But contrary to popular belief, this is where the Orokin stops, right at the zenith of their empire. All the common folk and colonists were lumped into one group, used as slaves or new bodies during the Yuvon ceremony, where red kuva, a red fluid, was used to permanently switch Orokin souls into younger bodies, willing or unwilling. Dax soldiers were genetically enhanced bodyguards that were incapable of harming or disobeying those with kuva in their blood, or wielding a scepter. In order to maintain this structure, the Orokin would synthesize massive clone armies. Enslaving others simply would not do. The Prime Grineer became a huge caste of slaves to the Orokin's will, beginning as miners. Poor grain farmers would toil away in the hot sun, feeding the mouths of hungry immortals in cities they could not be in. During this era, the Orokin's power would explode. The slow expansion and terraforming of the closest planets, more importantly, the discovery of the void by Archimedean Albrecht Entrati. Albrecht Entrati was deemed a madman by the rest of his peers for his belief in this place nicknamed the Void. Most found nothing in the Void, so it was deemed as nothing. Albrecht would prove otherwise, driven by humiliation. He needed to prove them all wrong. Encased in a seriglass bell, he would open a gate that appeared as a wall of light. Accompanied by his daughter Eularia and his kavat Kalimos, he would enter as they watched him make history. In a moment of complete awe of the vortex created by the wall of light, Entrati would push himself against the glass of the diving bell. This would cause it to graze the edge of the gate, which sliced cleanly through the only safety he had. Falling into the void, he thought to himself, "That's it." Entrati believed these were his last moments. Clenching his eyes shut, he felt pain. More than that, he felt the floor. Opening his eyes, he realized he was on the floor of his laboratory. A bitter sting of failure washed over him, even more so as he heard the crunching of glass beneath footsteps. He fully expected to see the disappointed face of his daughter Eularia, but when he looked up, he only saw himself. There on a cutout of his laboratory, surrounded by what he describes as caustic light, his doppelganger speaks to him, calling him a name he hadn't heard in centuries. Little Bengal, reaching out toward him but not moving as if space between them was closing in on itself. Albrecht narrowly escapes from whence he came, lacerating himself on the gate, blinded by the light. He could not speak, so he wrote in blood bidding Eularia to close the gate, cutting digits off the entity now known as the Man in the Wall. Albrecht hid the full details of his experience from his Orokin brethren. Many more expeditions would happen, but none would experience the same. But this would unlock a new level of power for the Orokin, beginning to harness the void in many ways, primarily for energy. Because of this experience, Albrecht would never partake in the Yuvon ceremony again, believing that he could possibly be linked to the doppelganger he saw, vowing that this is his last body. Despite all his efforts, Albrecht would continue his study on this entity, and he found that something important happened in 1999, but he still needed something to complete his plan to confront the entity. At the time, he did not know what, but he called it the Operator. The Orokin held dualism as truth. This event marked the transition from dualism to the Vain Faith, representing the moment the Orokin stopped seeking truth in the universe and began declaring themselves as its masters. In the pre-Void era, dualism was a grounding philosophy that maintained a strict boundary between two opposing forces, the physical and the metaphysical, the body and the mind, soul and lua. This belief created a sense of balance where the Orokin were merely inhabitants of a complex two-part system. However, they no longer needed to respect the soul as a distinct, untouchable entity if they could technologically move their ego from one vessel to another indefinitely. Consequently, they abandoned the humility of dualism for the Vain Faith, an imperial cult where the Orokin were no longer subjects of a dualistic universe, but were the divine law itself, treating the void not as a mystery to be respected, but as a tool for their own eternal vanity. To be honest, regardless of this discovery, Kuva was already causing this ideological shift. Albrecht only solidified it. The Meso Era. A grain farmer named Parvos Granum would shun the idea that no passionate man could become successful, so he would steal rubido gems from the gate of a gilded city, swallow one, then be caught by guards and ruthlessly punished. They cut off his hand and sent him back to toil away. His peers would scold him for what they called stupidity, but he got what he wanted. Retching up a scorching hot rubido gem, he would go back to the city and secure a loan. Using that money, he gave it to others as passionate as him. The only requirement was to pay it back with interest. Money begets money, the voice in his head told him. Those he gave loans would give loans to others, and his money would multiply. Granum would return to his farm and destroy it to erect the city of Corposium, the home of the Proto-Corpus. Capitalists, industrialists, builders, and merchants, they lived alongside the Orokin in commerce, lower in the caste system, but in a higher position as they provided literal value. It was with this new society of Proto-Corpus, prime Guneer slaves, and colonists all ruled by the Orokin that solar rails were created. Solar rails were a guided path to prevent the risky nature of void travel. It worked too well. The rest of the planets were terraformed. The frontier of the origin system was also limited after much experimentation. Some places were toxic and others were ravaged by technocite. Much of it was less overpopulated, more like overused. The Orokin caste never died and needed ever-increasing slaves to keep up their infrastructure. The obvious frontier was to leave the system. The Neo Era. An Archimedean named Parental proposed the idea of self-propagating machines capable of thought and adaptation to the various dangers found in the vastness of space. They would travel to the Tau Ceti system and terraform it, building a solar rail in between the two systems. This idea was shot down by all but one, Executor Ballas, out of the fear that they would end up turning on their creator. After creating it, Parental was dragged before the Seven to be executed for violating the Seven Principles, which are theorized but largely unknown. Ballas manipulated the rest of the executors by asking Parental to explain the flaw he gave to the sentients, just in case they would rebel. Exposure to void energy, at the very least, sterilizes them. Further exposure would kill them. The executors saw these new sentient beings as a calculated risk. Full production they went, creating the sentients that would be sent to the Tau Ceti system, sending them to tame the distant unknown. Trekking through space took time, likely uncounted centuries. The Orokin were impatient. Calculated risks were common. ZARIMAN 10-0, a massive colony ship that was an especially dangerous gamble, sent after the sentients to begin colonizing. It was said to be an honor to be the first in the Tau system. However, this was a lie. In order to get there before the colonists reach old age, they would take an uncalculated risk, a single mad leap through the void. Archimedean Yanta opposed this jump, but of course had no choice but to follow the instructions given to her. Yanta proposed short-distance bursts until the destination was reached, but Executor Tuval forced her hand. Likely this was to prevent the sentients from becoming fully established in the Tau system. Do not mistake this for a lack of accountability though. Many still opposed the jump, and in order to sabotage the expedition, Humbask, who was a part of the agricultural crew, overgrew the biodomes to throw off the ship's weight. The hope was to force a launch abort, but Yanta just subtracted the variables. Now with less crew members, she would push for the jump anyway, and just like that, the ZARIMAN would disappear. An unknown period of time would pass. After terraforming the Tau system, the sentients would lay siege to the origin system, coming to the conclusion that the Orokin would eventually destroy Tau. Everything the original executors were afraid of would come true. The sentients were the perfect adversaries. Almost all forms of Orokin technology were useless. Almost. A sentient would attack the Grineer in a mine, and one particularly resilient Grineer killed it with a heavy drill. This would prompt the Orokin to see the Grineer differently. They took the DNA of that Grineer and made a template for the new Grineer to be used to fight the sentients with archaic weaponry. Archaic referred to kinetic weaponry, the old ways of gun and blade. Using this new logic against the sentients proved to be effective, albeit for a short time until they adapted to that as well. Per usual, the Orokin delved even further into crude methods. Ballas proposed the usage of the infestation in the ravaged outer colonies. He took the technocyte virus, producing a new strain entirely, one that was meant to transform, preserving the host's combat skill. Ballas used the new Helminth strain on the Dax soldiers and others, whether they were willing or not, turning flesh into sword steel, creating powerful biodrones that were devastating on the battlefield. But it only half worked. They were uncontrollable and killed enemies and allies alike. The only choice left was to kill them all. A failure, until the ZARIMAN 10-0 strangely reappeared. Around this time, Eternalism began to take over as the one undeniable truth. Eternalism is the scientific rejection of how we normally experience time. Most of us are what philosophers call presentists. We believe that only the now is real, the past is gone, the future hasn't happened yet, and we ride the present moment like a boat on a river, moving from one instant to the next. But the Orokin discovered something that shattered this assumption entirely. They proved that the universe is not a river at all. It is a block, a frozen crystalline structure where every moment that could happen has happened and will always happen. Past, present, and future exist simultaneously, stacked on top of each other like pages in a book that has already been written. To them, this wasn't philosophy, it was physics. The easiest way to understand this is through an analogy. Imagine a student sitting in a classroom asked to solve a math problem. In the presentist view, our normal understanding of time, the student chooses the correct answer and the wrong answers simply vanish. They were never real. They were possibilities that collapsed the moment a choice was made. But in the eternalist view, things work very differently. The student does choose the correct answer, but the version of that student who chose the wrong answer doesn't disappear. That version is still sitting there in another slice of reality, equally real, experiencing the full consequences of their mistake. Neither version is more true than the other. They both exist, frozen in the block, separated only by the choices that define them. In Warframe, the void is what allows these separate slices to bleed into one another. It is the medium through which alternate realities can touch, overlap, and sometimes collide. The Axi Era. The jump had failed. The ZARIMAN was stranded in the void. The colonists were driven mad, morphing into monsters of incomprehensibility, killing everyone or dying from void poisoning. When the ship was rediscovered, it only contained children, altered and crazed with volatile abilities, found by Archimedean Margulis, the greatest scholar of genetics, who was Ballas's forbidden lover. Upon the discovery of the children, Margulis attempted to care for them, and one of the children would accidentally blind her, searing her eyes out of their sockets. She still cared for them. She and the Archimedean Sylvana would seek a way to soothe the children without a massive amount of sedation. Sylvana and Margulis are believed to have founded or expanded upon the idea of transference, using it to soothe the children, but in the midst of war, children who could possess things were too useful not to exploit. So Ballas proposed the idea of the children piloting the biodrones, his recent failure. Rejecting this idea, Sylvana would use transference, becoming one with the Force on Earth forever. It was as if it was meant to happen. The Tenno soothed the agony these drones felt, made for war through pain and suffering. Frames for children to participate in a conflict that was never theirs. Warframes. Margulis would adamantly refuse this pairing, but she was an Archimedean with no right, likely manipulated to believe this was a good thing for the children now nicknamed the Tenno. So they trained in the archaic ways of gun and blade, slaying the sentients, establishing the Tenno schools of focus to control their new powers. They were beginning to have some semblance of normality. All except one, Rel. He alone knew exactly what happened on that ship, and who it happened with. The reason why the Tenno escaped and no others did was because of the deal they made with the same entity that Albrecht found. Rel felt its presence profoundly. The man in the wall gave the Tenno these impossible abilities but refused to tell them what exactly it meant. Rel, due to his autistic nature, was outcast by the rest of the Tenno. Still, he was noble. He would lock himself in a transference loop, trapping the man in the wall with his mind for centuries. During this age of Warframes, many different experiments would take place. That of Excalibur Umbra, a Dax soldier that was caught witnessing Ballas collude with the sentients. Therefore, he was punished, turned into a Warframe but retaining enough of his consciousness to remember a painful memory. Then there was that of Soren and Jade. Soren, a low guardian, and Jade and Orokin were lovers. Because of the forbidden nature of their love, they would be punished, turned into Warframes. Jade was pregnant prior to the transformation, so Ballas ruled instead of giving life, she would take life as the Jade Light Executioner. Soren, however, would lament, forgetting much of what he was lamenting for. Eventually, that lament would pervert into rage. Even after the Warframe Tenno organization came into play, war was still just that, war. Warframes, Grineer, likely even Tenno were lost. In the midst of this war, there was something proposed by the Orokin, never before seen: peace. A peace treaty between the two, to stop casualties on both sides. The Orokin would travel to the Tau system to begin colonizing and researching with the sentients. The sentients developed a culture after consuming a flower that allowed them to develop a consciousness. This led to the establishment of Tauron Academy, where Tenno and Sentient could study together, birthplace of Caliban Prime. The Orokin went so far as to bestow the title of Archimedean to a sentient named Itsam. This went on for some time, but peace was messy at best. Tensions still ran high, and the Orokin did not like that. They obviously didn't want peace considering how they saw themselves. It was absurd to think that anything, let alone a creation of their design, could be equal. After the solar rail between Tau and the Origin system was built, there was no congratulations, no ceremony, nothing at all. Just tools that did a good job like they were supposed to. A rebellion was likely manufactured to make it look like the sentients began attacking. Therefore, war was inevitable. The General Roth and his lover executor NATAH would kill all over Tau, garnering their nicknames, the Devil of Tau and the Blood Queen. In reality, the Orokin would trick the Tenno to poison the very flower that gave the sentients their mind, Margulis being the one to give them the order, then purge the event from their mind. Ultimately, this would lead to her death, a second blinding, Jade Light, reducing her to a red mist. The Tenno would fight solemnly against the friends they made during the peace, as a new mother figure would enter the fray, a sentient infiltrating, taking on the alias of the Lotus, true name NATAH. Even she would falter for the children and betray her sentient brethren. The void took away her ability to procreate, so she easily clung to the children with no parents, and they easily clung to her. After the overwhelming victory of the Orokin over the sentients, the Orokin would congratulate the Tenno, and right then and there, the Tenno would annihilate the Empire. Lotus would cement her betrayal by putting the Tenno to sleep on Lua, the moon, then hiding the moon in the void, showcasing her power. This marks the collapse. Two Orokin sisters would escape the Night of Naga Drums and take command over the remainder of the Grineer. Now, with little to no competition, they could rule over the Origin system. The Corpus saw this opportunity to further expand, establishing proxies and robotic military structures supported by Prophet. An assassination attempt on Parvos Granum would force the Warframe gifted to him, Protea, to create a timeless pocket dimension nicknamed Granum Void. This would cause the Board of Directors, which is the chief governing body of the Corpus, to skew their beliefs, excessive exploitation of everything and everyone for profit. This is not what Parvos Granum stood for. Definitely not the perpetual debt the citizens of Solaris now find themselves in. As centuries passed, the Grineer lost the Prime Grineer template to make genetically stable clones, leaving the only option of a new template being another clone. Thus, the Grineer began to rot from genetic instability, replacing parts of their bodies with crude machinery. But because the Grineer are still mass-produced clones, they began to take over the Origin system, pushing the corpus back. The Lotus saw this, eventually deeming it time to begin waking the Tenno up, now with no memory of what they were. Part 1: Awakening. VOR'S Prize. When it comes to the played story of Warframe, there is a bit of a ludonarrative dissonance, which means the contradictions between story and player character. The reasoning being that all quests come from a perspective of there only being one main Tenno. Based on that and reasons like Rel's existence, we know that not all Tenno were made equal, so we will refer to the player character as a chosen one, the operator. The rest of this video will be dedicated to explaining every quest in Warframe in chronological order. Admiral VOR is a Grineer that was obsessed with Orokin technology for a multitude of reasons. He had a relentless ambition to not only become stronger but cure the Grineer of the genetic instability they faced, and he saw Orokin technology as the perfect way to do so. The issue was the Grineer Queens deemed this obsession unhealthy. He once had a mission to destroy the Tenno cryopods, but he captured and studied them instead. This caused his demotion from Admiral to Captain. The discovery of Warframe cryopods on Earth led to VOR arriving and killing the commanding officer to take the Warframes for his research, further disobeying the Queens. The operator is in the midst of waking up. They choose a Warframe and VOR attaches the SOLARIS to its leg. SOLARIS is a device that allows the complete incapacitation of a Warframe. It could possibly trap the mind of a Tenno inside of the Warframe, but that is purely speculation. The Lotus surges the Warframe's power systems, and the operator awakens, killing the rest of the Grineer there. She does this out of desperation, stating that she cannot lose another Tenno. The operator escapes the initial ambush, but their situation remains dire. The Lotus's voice cuts through the static, urgent but controlled. She has located a derelict Orokin landing craft in the region, a Lith-class vessel that has remained hidden since the collapse. If the operator can reach it, they have a chance. The journey to the Lith reveals the state of Earth. Once the seat of the Orokin Empire, the planet has become overgrown. Grineer patrols sweep through the ancient towers wrapped in vines. The Lith is damaged but salvageable. It contains a cephalon, the digitized mind of an individual named Orokin Era, a former mercenary that believed he could kill the Orokin as a last hurrah, then die succumbing to his disease. His valiant effort was laughed at, and he was revived by Ballas after believing he succeeded, then glassed. Now digitized with his memory wiped, he serves the operator. The Lotus explains that Orokin vessels were designed with modularity in mind, segments that could be replaced or upgraded as needed. The operator must recover these segments from Grineer hands. Each mission peels back another layer of the system's current state. The communication segment reveals how the Grineer coordinates their forces. Endless clones directed by officers who answer to the Twin Queens. The navigation segment shows just how far Grineer influence has spread. Nearly every planet in the Origin system bears their military presence. The mod segment unlocks the Warframe's true potential, allowing the operator to enhance their abilities beyond baseline parameters. The Arsenal segment grants access to the Foundry, the ability to construct new weapons from recovered blueprints. Throughout this restoration, the SOLARIS continues its work. The Lotus monitors its progress with growing concern. VOR is not merely tracking the operator, but preparing to assume direct control. The countdown becomes literal when the device reaches critical integration. The Lotus locates a Foundry segment capable of synthesizing a countermeasure, but VOR has anticipated this move. He waits at the facility, personally. Captain VOR is unlike other Grineer. Where his kind rot from genetic degradation, VOR has augmented himself with Orokin technology. The Yanis key embedded in his chest grants him abilities that border on the supernatural, energy manipulation, teleportation, and an arrogance that comes from believing himself chosen. The confrontation is violent and brief. VOR underestimates the operator, assuming the SOLARIS has weakened them sufficiently. He is wrong. The operator destroys him, cleaving him in two. The Lotus guides them through the synthesis of the SOLARIS negator. The device falls away, inert, but VOR's death is not permanent. The Yanis key refuses to let its hosts expire. In the void, somewhere between dimensions, VOR reconstitutes. He becomes something else entirely, a being of energy who haunts the void corridors, preaching about his own divinity to anyone unfortunate enough to encounter him. But that is a problem for another time. With the Lisette restored and the Iskaris neutralized, the operator possesses the basic tools of a Tenno. A ship capable of traversing the system, a foundry capable of crafting weapons, a guide whose motives remain unclear but whose assistance has proven invaluable. The Lotus frames their situation simply. The origin system is in chaos. The Grineer spread like a plague. The Corpus exploit every opportunity. The infested fester in forgotten corners. Balance must be restored. The operator accepts this mission because they have nothing else. No memory, no home, only a voice in their ear and a war without end. The Teacher. Word of Captain VOR'S defeat spread faster than the Lotus anticipated. The Grineer captains' camps contained artifacts that other factions now raced to claim. The Corpus moved first. A treasurer operating under Nef Anyo's authority descends upon the forests of Earth with a salvage team and a specific target, another mod segment. Orokin enhancement technology that could revolutionize Corpus weapons development, or in the wrong hands, create complications that Nef Anyo's profit margins cannot accommodate. The Lotus dispatches the operator to intercept. The mod segment cannot fall into Corpus possession. The mission seems straightforward, a recovery operation against corporate scavengers who lack the martial prowess to challenge a Tenno directly. The operator cuts through the forest, following the signal, and locates the segment in the ruins of VOR'S forward camp. They reach for it. A shockwave throws them back. Corpus forces converge on the disturbance, but they are not the source of the attack. A voice speaks from the shadows. They have been watching. They wanted to see the Tenno who brought down VOR. They are curious whether the reality matches the reputation. The operator fights through the Corpus, but the voice's owner does not flee. He reveals himself only after the last soldier falls. Teshin Dax, a warrior who should not exist, a remnant of an age that ended in fire and betrayal. He regards the operator with something between disappointment and interest. Then he strikes. The Warframe systems fail. Not destroyed, merely disabled with a precision that speaks to intimate knowledge of their design. Teshin incapacitates the operator and severs their connection to the Lotus in a single fluid motion. He takes them to his sanctuary, a hidden dojo beneath the Earth's overgrown surface, and he begins to explain. The Tenno have forgotten. Teshin knows this. The Lotus sealed away their memories of the old war, of who they were and what they did. He does not condemn her for this choice. The memories contain horrors that might break minds already fractured by trauma, but forgetting has left the Tenno incomplete. They fight with instinct rather than understanding. They wield weapons without comprehending how to unlock their true potential. Teshin intends to correct this deficiency. The training begins with the fundamentals. Teshin provides the operator with a Thornback, a weapon stripped of enhancement, and challenges them to a duel. Their Warframe abilities remain locked. Their communication with the Lotus remains severed. They have only the blade and whatever skill their muscle memory provides. When the operator finally lands enough blows to satisfy him, he acknowledges their progress and moves toward the next lesson. Teshin presents target drones shielded by rapid regeneration that renders conventional damage meaningless. Only specific damage types can pierce their defenses. The Corpus interrupt. They have tracked the operator to Teshin's sanctuary, and they arrive in force. The Dax warrior makes a choice that reveals his priorities. He urges the operator to claim the mod segment and escape while he holds the line. The Corpus cannot be allowed to capture the technology, and the operator cannot be allowed to fall before their training is complete. Teshin will buy them time. The operator's abilities return as they flee. The Lotus's voice cuts through the static, urgent with questions about what has transpired. The escape route collapses behind them as Teshin faces the Corpus assault alone. He falls, not from lack of skill, but from overwhelming numbers. The Corpus take him prisoner and broadcast their demands, the mod segment in exchange for the Dax warrior's life. The Lotus advises a different approach. Install the mod segment, use it, learn its final lessons. The rescue mission takes the operator aboard a Corpus vessel. They tear through security, defeat the wardens holding Teshin, and hack his containment cell. But the Lotus issues an unexpected order. Capture Teshin. The operator hesitates, uncertain whether this is betrayal or a test. It proves to be the latter. Teshin allows himself to be subdued, acknowledging that the operator has learned enough to take him if they wished. The final demonstration involves sabotaging the ship itself, hacking reactor controls, and destroying the core before extraction. In the aftermath, Teshin and the Lotus speak. Their conversation reveals a history that the operator cannot fully access. Teshin concedes that the Lotus made the correct choice in sealing the Tenno's memories. The old war demanded things of them that no child should remember, but he insists that those memories will return in time, whether the Lotus wills it or not. The truth cannot be buried forever. For now, the Tenno need guidance. They need a mentor to teach them the arts of war that instinct alone cannot provide. The Lotus will provide the other. Their methods differ. Their goals for the moment align. Teshin takes refuge in the relay stations, offering advanced training through the Conclave. He provides the operator with foundational mods that will serve them throughout their journey. Pressure Point for melee damage, Serration for rifle enhancement, Hornet Strike for secondary weapons, Continuity for ability duration. Each gift represents knowledge he believes essential. Once awake, Dr. Tengus was a Grineer scientist of considerable reputation. While most Grineer research focuses on military applications, cloning efficiency, weapons development, and cybernetic augmentation, Tengus pursued more esoteric interests. He believed the infestation could be controlled. The Queens tolerated his experiments because his previous work had yielded results. Tengus developed several bioweapons that proved effective against Corpus forces. His facility on the Galleon represented his most ambitious project yet. Tengus's research notes are scattered throughout the ship, revealing the scope of his hubris. He believed he had isolated a control mechanism within the infestation's collective consciousness. The moment he discovered the Tenno were aware of his research, he intentionally released the specimens. Within hours, the entire crew was compromised. Tengus's fate is unknown, his final log entry cutting off mid-sentence as something found him. The mission objective becomes clear. The Galleon's navigation systems must be destroyed to prevent the ship from reaching populated space. If the infestation spreads to a colony world, billions could be consumed before any response could be mounted. The operator uses a cascade bomb to eliminate the route break. The ARCHWING. Councillor Vahek declares war on the Corpus against the chairman Freud Beck. He plans on using the Baylor Fomorian, a capital ship of a Fomorian fleet, massive and slow with devastating abilities. This threatens the balance of the system. The Lotus gives the operator the blueprint for the ARCHWING, a winged harness that allowed the Warframes to participate in space combat. The technology was lost during the collapse, fragments scattered across the system, until now. Intelligence reaches the Lotus through channels she does not specify. Councillor Vahek, a Grineer commander known for his paranoid brutality and cybernetic augmentation, has recovered several ARCHWING components. Separately, Corpus researchers have been attempting to reverse engineer flight systems from salvaged Orokin vessels. Neither faction fully understands what they possess. Both would use it to devastating effect if they did. The Orokin did not merely create a jetpack. They created a complete combat system, weapons designed for engagement ranges measured in kilometers, shields capable of deflecting ship-grade weaponry. The Corpus and Grineer take note. Intelligence indicates both factions are accelerating their own flight programs, attempting to counter the advantage the Tenno have reclaimed. But they are working from fragments and guesswork. The operator now possesses a piece of their heritage restored after centuries of loss. Stolen dreams. While searching for the arcane codices, the operator captures a thief named Meru. The information they search for has an unknown importance. The arrangement is straightforward. Meru provides intelligence and access. The operator provides the violence necessary to reach the target. Any knowledge recovered gets shared. Any physical loot is negotiable. The Lotus expresses reservations about working with criminals, but the intelligence Meru offers is too valuable to ignore. The trail leads through Grineer spy vaults, facilities designed to protect sensitive data through layers of security that would stop conventional intruders. The operator is not conventional. Meru becomes a recurring contact. Her network extends throughout the system's criminal underground, a web of smugglers, information brokers, and treasure hunters who operate in the spaces between Grineer martial law and Corpus economic exploitation. She maintains a bazaar on a derelict relay, a black market where items of questionable provenance change hands. The operator's relationship with her is transactional but not hostile. In a system ruled by factions that would dissect them for research purposes, pragmatic allies are valuable. The arcane system itself becomes clearer through recovered data. During the Orokin Era, certain technologies were enhanced through ritual processes that bordered on the mystical. The line between advanced technology and genuine supernatural phenomena was always blurred for the Orokin. They could manipulate the fundamental forces of reality through the void. Why would they not incorporate such manipulation into their artifacts? Arcane enhancements can be applied to warframes and other equipment, granting abilities that exceed normal parameters. The knowledge to create them has been lost, but existing arcanes can still be recovered from those who once wielded them. The New Strange. A summons arise from a relay station, those massive orbital platforms that serve as neutral ground between Tenno operations. The sender identifies himself as Cephalon Chimeras, a digital entity whose existence predates the collapse. He discusses only his purpose. The sanctuary is Chimeras' obsession, a vast digital simulation containing the genetic and behavioral data of every species he has managed to catalog. His goal is nothing less than the preservation of all life, not in physical form but in perfect digital recreation. Chimeras offers the operator access to his resources in exchange for assistance. Synthesis requires living samples, subjects scanned with specialized equipment that captures their complete biological and behavioral profile. Chimeras directs the operator toward specimens of particular interest, creatures or individuals whose data would fill gaps in his collection. The process is not lethal, technically. The subject is digitized, their information absorbed into the sanctuary, while their physical form simply ceases to exist. Whether this constitutes as death is a philosophical question Chimeras finds tedious. The synthesis scanner becomes a permanent tool in the operator's arsenal. Combat targets can be scanned before engagement, revealing weaknesses and recording data. The accumulated information unlocks entries in Chimeras' database, historical records, species profiles, and fragments of Orokin knowledge that provide context for the operator's other investigations. Chroma is involved in the New Strange, a warframe that Chimeras has become particularly interested in. The quest reveals the methods by which warframes were sometimes created during the Old War, processes that were neither clean nor merciful. Chimeras' interest in Chroma is clinical. He wishes to understand how such a being could exist. The operator's role is to acquire this data, whatever the cost. The relationship with Chimeras is not comfortable. His detachment borders on the pathological. He views the extinction of a species as an acceptable outcome so long as their data is preserved. He considers physical existence inferior to digital immortality, but his resources are genuine, and his sanctuary provides training simulations that allow the operator to test their abilities against increasingly dangerous scenarios. The simulacrum becomes an invaluable training ground. Part 2, War Within. NATAH. Strange signals emanate from Earth. The Lotus detects energy patterns that match no known technology, neither Grineer nor Corpus nor infested. She dispatches the operator to investigate, her voice carrying an unusual tension that she does not explain. The operator recovers a sentient Oculist, a drone that served as a scout during the Old War. Its data core contains fragmented memories, images of a conflict that dwarfed anything the current factions wage against each other. After scanning the drones, the Lotus mysteriously vanishes, forcing Orders to take over.
I'm sorry, Tenno. Stay safe.
Hello? Did the Lotus just abandon the operator?
At the end of the mission, Teshin contacts you, with an inkling that the Lotus is hiding her true origins. He sends the operator to Saturn in search of more information on the drone, remnants of an enemy long thought dead. After the mission, Teshin successfully intercepts a message from Tile Rhaegor. The head researcher of Grineer Gene Repair established underwater laboratories beneath Uranus's crushing ocean. These facilities, accessible through specialized ARCHWING configurations, research technologies far beyond standard Grineer capability. The operator infiltrates the laboratories and Lotus reappears and warns against this. Teshin is keen to point out that she is afraid of what they'll find. In the midst of the conflict on Uranus, Tile Rhaegor accidentally releases a massive sentient who calls for one named NATAH.
NATAH, where are you?
You cannot hide from me.
No longer able to hide that identity, Lotus tells Teshin and the operator that her old name was NATAH, that she is a sentient. The second dream. The enemy is Hunhao, a sentient of immense age and power, one of the original architects of the assault on the Origin system. He was believed destroyed during the Old War, his massive form scattered across the ocean floor of Uranus. But sentients do not die easily. Their consciousness can persist in fragments, rebuilding over centuries from scattered pieces. Hunhao has awakened, and he has awakened with a singular purpose. He wants his daughter back. NATAH was Hunhao's creation, sent to infiltrate the Origin system and destroy the Tenno from within. She succeeded in infiltrating. She adopted the identity of the Lotus, becoming the guide and protector of the very being she was meant to annihilate. Hunhao does not understand this betrayal. He does not understand how his daughter could abandon her purpose for creatures she was designed to hate. But understanding is irrelevant. He will reclaim her, or he will destroy everything she has chosen to protect. The Stalker serves as Hunhao's instrument. He was present during the collapse, witnessed the Tenno turn against their masters, and swore eternal retribution. A cruel irony. Hunhao offers him power in exchange for service. The Stalker accepts. He becomes something more than he was, armored in sentient technology, wielding weapons forged from Hunhao's own fragmented body. The trail leads to Lua, Earth's moon. The Lotus hid Lua in the void at the moment of the collapse, phasing it out of normal space to protect what lay within. The reservoir, the place where the Tenno were stored between missions, their bodies preserved while their minds piloted warframes across the system. Hunhao has found a way to pierce this concealment. The operator must reach the reservoir before the Stalker does. The moon's surface is scarred with Orokin architecture, towers and gardens that once housed the Empire's elite. Now they stand empty, maintained by automated systems that no longer serve any purpose. The operator fights through Grineer and Corpus forces who have begun to exploit the moon's re-emergence, scavengers picking through the bones of giants. The reservoir lies in the moon's heart. The operator enters a chamber lined with pods, each one containing a body in suspended animation. The bodies are small, young. The revelation restructures everything the operator thought they understood. They are not the Warframe. The Warframe is a vessel, a biological construct piloted through a process called transference. The actual Tenno, the source of their consciousness and their void abilities, has been lying in this chamber since the end of the Old War. The child in the pod, that is the operator. That is what they truly are. The Stalker arrives. Empowered by Hunhao's technology, he tears through the reservoir's defenses. He reaches the operator's pod and prepares to deliver the killing blow, but he can't bring himself to do it. The Stalker realizes he was one of those metal meat puppets the Tenno piloted. He leaves instead of fighting the operator. Hunhao causes fragments to finish the job and kill the operator. The Lotus helps them escape back into their orbiter. The once closed-off room is now open, home to a somatic link that serves as a piloting mechanism for Tenno. Transference bolts and warframes facilitate this connection. The goal now is to get the operator back into that chamber, but the Stalker guards the pod, pushing you away from making that connection, finally separating Tenno from Warframe and plunging the sentient sword deep into the Warframe's chest. Hunhao further coaxes him to finish the job. Before he could harm the operator, the Warframe breaks the sword, forcing the Stalker to shed his new sentient powers. The operator awakens fully for the first time. They see their own face, young and marked by the Void's influence, eyes carrying the light of energies no human should possess. They remember fragments of the ZARIMAN, of voices in the Void, of choices made in moments of absolute desperation. The focus system unlocks, allowing them to develop their innate abilities along paths defined by the schools established during the Old War: Madarai, Vazarin, Narman, Unaru, Zenurik. Each school represents a philosophy, a way of channeling void energy that shapes the operator's combat abilities. The Lotus tells the operator that hiding the Tenno in reservoirs served a dual purpose, for safety and catharsis. Their void abilities tormented them with voices of unknown origin. The second dream ends, and everything after is different. The operator knows what they are. They begin to remember what happened long ago. Hunhao remains a threat, diminished by his confrontation with his wayward daughter, but far from defeated. This truth of the Tenno pilots echoes across the system, and many malevolent forces begin to take action in accordance. The War Within. The operator experiences a vision showing the twin queens of the Grineer discussing something called continuity. When the Lotus detects unusual readings from the operator, she sends them to investigate Lua, specifically the reservoir where the Tenno were once kept in stasis. On Lua, the operator encounters Teshin, who is acting strangely and heading toward the reservoir. When confronted, Teshin reveals he is working under orders from the Twin Queens. He warns the operator that they are not as safe behind their warframes as they believe, then escapes using decoy specters. The operator tracks Teshin across the origin system, eventually following his signal to a hidden asteroid field near Sedna. Deep scans reveal a concealed security matrix, and upon investigation, the operator discovers the Kuva Fortress, a massive mobile base powered by Fomorian engines. Its mobility explains why no one has ever been able to locate the queens before. Despite the Lotus losing contact due to transference interference, the operator presses forward into the fortress. They eventually reach the queen's throne room, where Teshin confronts them. The twin queens reveal the truth. Teshin's full title is Teshin Dax. He is a Dax soldier from the Orokin Era, genetically conditioned to be incapable of disobeying anyone who holds the Kuva scepter. The queens possess this scepter, making Teshin their unwilling servant. The queens intended for Teshin to bring the Tenno directly to them, not the Warframe. Disappointed but undeterred, they use Teshin's help to restrain the Warframe and initiate a surge to disrupt the transference connection. Back on the orbiter, the surge renders the operator unconscious, awakening outside of their transference chamber to find Ortis in distress. When the operator attempts to re-establish their somatic link using void energy, they experience a painful backlash. Ortis, believing they can no longer control warframes and therefore is a security risk, initiates his Purge precept. This protocol decompresses the ship and turns the operator's own sentinel against them. Ortis urges them to reach the navigation console so he can detach the landing craft. They escape and crash land on a snowy mountain on Earth. Inside a cave on the mountain, they encounter Teshin again. He locks them inside and speaks of how Margulis lied to the Tenno about their true nature. They discover a massive Ayatin sculpture and activate it, falling into an underground chamber filled with bones and inhabited by creatures called Golden Maws. Through a series of trials navigating these chambers while evading the Maws, the operator progressively unlocks their dormant void abilities. Void Sling, a teleporting lunge, Void Mode, temporary invisibility, and finally Transference, the ability to possess other beings. They demonstrate this last power by taking control of a Golden Maw itself. Throughout these trials, the queens narrate suppressed memories from the operator's childhood aboard the ZARIMAN 10-0. These memories reveal that after the ship became stranded in the void, the adult passengers went mad from its influence. The children were forced to survive among them. Outside the caves, Teshin explains the full context of what the queens intend. He brings the operator to a Yuvan theater, a place where Orokin once gathered to barter over young bodies for the process of continuity. This is what the Elder Queen plans to do to the operator. She intends to use the transference surge to take over the operator's body and claim it as her own. The entire mountain trial is revealed to have been a mental scenario occurring in the moments before the Queen's transference surge completes, meaning the entire Purge precept and everything after it was all a premonition of sorts. However, having reawakened their full powers, the operator resists and breaks free from the Queen's control. They awaken back on the orbiter with their new abilities intact, determined to reclaim their warframe and free Teshin, using transference without a somatic link to teleport directly to the Kuva Fortress. Inside the throne room, the Worm Queen, the younger of the two, flees while the Elder Queen orders her Kuva Guardians to attack. The Kuva Guardians are invulnerable to conventional weapons. The only way to defeat them is for the operator to step out of their warframe and use Void Sling to disarm them, then destroy them with void energy. As the operator destroys the Guardians, they also destroy the 9 large braids connected to the Queen's throne, dismantling their systems. Eventually, the Elder Queen orders Teshin to fight. Unlike the Guardians, Teshin can restrain the operator but is vulnerable to the Warframe's attacks. After defeating Teshin, the Elder Queen attacks directly with her scepter. The operator uses Void Sling against her and successfully takes the Kuva scepter from her grasp. With the scepter no longer in the queen's possession, Teshin is freed from her control. The fate of the Elder Queen depends on the player's choice. She either escapes to eventually die in her decaying Grineer body, is killed by the operator's void beam, or is struck down by Teshin. Regardless, the Worm Queen escapes. Teshin departs, and the operator regains contact with the Lotus. After returning to the orbiter, a brief disagreement occurs between the Lotus and the operator regarding Margulis's actions with the Tenno. Ordis then interrupts with reports of an active Old War beacon. They return to the mountain pass on Earth and meet Teshin at the summit. He explains that the kuva on the scepter is believed to be the blood of the Orokin ancestors, either an elixir of immortality or a corrupting substance. He tells them that what they choose to do with it will define them. Destroy the kuva, give it to Teshin, or consume it themselves. After making the choice, an unknown voice briefly speaks through the operator, addressing them as Kiddo and implying some kind of connection. Teshin shakes them out of this trance and warns that the world now weighs more heavily on them, foreshadowing the danger that has yet to come, as it is something only they can deal with. Following the quest, the operator also begins encountering kuva larvalings in high-level Grineer missions, which can be mercied to generate kuva liches, powerful immortal Grineer that grant special kuva Grineer weapons as rewards. Chains of HARROW. Following the events of the War Within, Ordis receives a disturbing transmission through the Syndicate channel. The message originates from the Red Veil and contains a female voice desperately asking someone named Rel to reveal his location.
We want to help you, Rel. Tell us where you are.
During playback, the operator's vision turns red before blacking out momentarily. Ordis describes the message as haunted and discourages investigation, but traces the signal to an abandoned Steel Meridian ship in Earth orbit. The ship is running on emergency power with no living crew inside. The operator discovers dead Grineer with knives in them, blood smeared in the shape of the Red Veil symbol, and a message written in blood on the wall. You cast him out. A woman named Palladino contacts the operator, identifying herself as a member of the Red Veil and requesting protection. She explains that the Red Veil has fallen into chaos following the departure of their sacred muse. Hostile Red Veil fanatics now roam the ship. The operator locates Palladino along with her Kavat companion named Rook and defends her against waves of shambling, weaponless Red Veil operatives who attack mindlessly. Palladino is taken to Iron Wake, a Steel Meridian outpost on Earth. In order to enter, the operator must assume their Tenno form. Palladino serves as the Red Veil's spiritual medium. Rel was their spiritual focus and the very foundation upon which the Red Veil was built. He has now disappeared from his vessel, and Palladino can no longer communicate with him. This disappearance is driving many Red Veil members mad. Through conversation between Palladino and the Lotus, more of Rel's history emerges. Rel was a Tenno, but he was cast out by Margulis herself. This explains why the Lotus has no knowledge of him. After his exile, the Four Mothers of the Red Veil took Rel in and studied his teachings, eventually founding the Syndicate around him. Palladino asked the operator to retrieve a stolen relic that belonged to Rel. They travel to an abandoned Corpus ship, also darkened and crewless. Another blood message reads, "He suffers while you dream." A mysterious voice echoes through the ship, speaking of a man in the wall.
The man in the wall.
Following the voice leads to a room filled with dead Red Veil corpses. The relic is found here, a golden horseshoe-shaped object called the Donda. Upon taking it, a hostile, shadowy manifestation of Rel appears. This manifestation cannot be killed by any means and reanimates the Red Veil bodies as attacking zombies. The operator is forced to flee. Back at Iron Wake, Palladino uses the Donda to commune with Rel. A minigame representing Rel's memories plays out, showing cards with faces and asking the operator to identify the emotions displayed. The Lotus develops a theory. Rel's manifestations are transference energy that has split apart from a single mind. Ordis suggests that kinetic siphon traps normally sold by Cephalon Chimeras could be repurposed to capture these fragments. The operator undertakes 3 missions to capture pieces of Rel's fragmented consciousness, referred to as his emotions. Each mission reveals more information about Rel and what happened to him. During the first mission on DEIMOS, Palladino and the Lotus discuss Rel's warnings. The Lotus dismisses them as symptoms of void exposure, a phenomenon she claims is well understood. Palladino counters that only Rel has seen the true nature of this exposure, an entity she describes as old as stars. A message on the floor reads, "Blinded, she cast him out." Rel's emotions appear as figures with pure black bodies and white drawn faces. They can be restrained with kinetic siphon traps and then destroyed. However, Rel's main manifestation also hunts the operator throughout these missions. This manifestation cannot be killed and possesses powerful abilities, including a movement-slowing aura, the power to trap the operator in place, area of effect damage, ghostly duplicates that attack in melee, and homing fireballs. During the second mission on Uranus, Palladino urges the operator to bring Rel home to the temple. The Lotus asks if Rel is resting in cryosleep like the other Tenno on Lua. Palladino reveals they did not have that option. Another message reads, "You rejected him. He saved you." During the third mission on Earth, the Lotus questions how Rel has survived so long without cryosleep. Palladino explains Rel transferred his entire consciousness into his Warframe, which she calls his undying vessel. The red veil then chained the Warframe. A final message reads, "What is evil but indifference?" After all emotions are captured, Palladino confirms that Rel's spirit has returned to his Warframe. She asks the operator to come to the temple where he is kept to perform one final act. The Lotus maintains that everything Rel has described is simply psychological damage caused by his prolonged transference loop. The temple is located within an Orokin derelict in the void. Palladino reveals what must be done. The Warframe housing Rel's consciousness must be destroyed. This will kill Rel, but grant him peace. Deep inside the derelict, the operator finds a central temple room containing a large tree glowing red with embers. Below, accessible only to the operator in their true form, lies an altar. Rel's Warframe hangs suspended by chains in the center. When the operator begins destroying the chains, a revelation occurs. There is a malevolent being inside the Warframe, and it is not Rel. This entity attacks with fireballs and sends Red Veil fanatics against the operator. To proceed, they must defeat the fanatics, which causes more chains to become vulnerable to their void beam. After each set of chains is destroyed, the card minigame returns, this time asking the operator to choose how to respond rather than identify emotions. When all chains are destroyed, the Warframe is destroyed along with them. Rel finally appears as his true self. When he asks about the man in the wall, Palladino assures him that the Tenno will take on that responsibility. Rel has earned his rest. Completing the quest grants the operator the blueprint for the HARROW Warframe, the same frame that housed Rel's consciousness, and permanent access to Iron Wake. Following the quest, the operator may randomly encounter a doppelganger of themselves aboard the orbiter. This figure performs mundane actions like examining machinery or sitting down. When noticed, it greets the operator with, "Hey kiddo," before disappearing. This is the same voice that spoke to the operator at the end of The War Within. Rel was autistic and in some ways experienced indifference from his peers, yet he still chose to save them, experiencing a great amount of suffering on their behalf. He chose not to be evil, for what is evil but indifference? The nature of this entity, the man in the wall, that Rel warned about and kept at bay for centuries, remains unexplained at the time of this quest. The end of this quest marked the release of the man in the wall. Part 3. The New War. Saya's Vigil. 5 years is a long time to grieve. For Saya of Cetus, those years stretched into an eternity of unanswered questions and sleepless nights spent watching the plains of Eidolon from the outskirts of the colony, waiting for a figure that would never return. Cetus is the only settlement on Earth we know. Her husband, Anko, had been one of Cetus's finest minds, a researcher whose curiosity drew him deep into the mysteries buried beneath the golden grass of the plains. He led the Quills, those enigmatic servants of the Unum, and his discoveries held secrets that even they guarded jealously. Then one day, he simply vanished. Kanzu, the grizzled veteran who manages Cetus's dealings with the outside world, carried his own burden through those years. He had been there the day Anko disappeared, a fact Saya never let him forget. But there was more to his guilt than mere presence at a tragedy. Long before Saya had chosen Anko, Kanzu had offered her an iron flower, the traditional Ostron declaration of love. She had refused him, and he had stepped aside gracefully, becoming a friend to both her and the man she chose instead. Now, with Anko gone, that old rejection festered in Saya's grief, transforming Kanzu from a friend to a suspect in her tortured mind. He turned to the operator and asked them to speak with her on his behalf. The operator found Saya where she always stood, at the edge of Cetus, and when the operator offered their help, she accepted, not for Kanzu's sake, but for her own desperate need to finally know the truth. The first clue lay just beyond the walls of Cetus, at a Grineer drilling operation that had torn into the earth. Counselor Vahek's forces had descended upon the plains, their excavation sites scarring the landscape as they searched for something connected to Anko's research. The operator scattered the Grineer defenders and discovered that the drilling machine had broken through into a sealed cave, a place Kanzu recognized immediately. He and Anko had sheltered there many times before a rock slide had sealed its entrance years ago. Inside, resting in the darkness, lay an Ostron coffer. The white lockbox bore the unmistakable craftsmanship of Anko's hands, but its presence only deepened Saya's anguish. If his coffer were here, abandoned in a sealed cave, then where was the man himself? The coffer's lock had been damaged, but forcing it open was not an option. Saya recognized the mechanism as a shatter lock, an ingenious security device that used a glass key now broken into fragments. Any attempt to breach it by force would destroy whatever lay within. If they wished to uncover Anko's secrets, they would need to reconstruct the key itself. Counselor Vahek's obsession with the plains of Eidolon was an effort to seek weapons to use against both the Tenno and the sentient threat. He had learned of something extraordinary buried in Ostron history, the legend of Unum's champion, a woman of glass who had once stood against the sentients themselves. The Quills had guarded this knowledge for generations, but the Grineer's brutal interrogation of a captured Quill had pried loose the secret. Now Hex forces scoured the plains, searching for any artifact connected to this glass warrior. The Shatterlock fragments, remnants of Anko's research into the champion's remains, had become the key to unlocking power that Heck believed could turn the tide against any enemy. The operator returned to the plains armed with codex scanners, instruments capable of detecting and analyzing objects through their unique energy signatures. Saya had discovered alongside Anko during their years of research that the glass fragments responded to specific harmonic frequencies. Using this knowledge, the operator could locate the scattered pieces of the Shatterlock key. Using the codex technology to resonate with the harmonic frequencies of the glass fragments, the scanners reveal the shards' locations through walls and obstacles alike. 3 pieces were recovered from the camp before Grineer reinforcements, including a Tusk Bolkor assault transport descended upon the site. The operator fought their way clear, extracting with the fragments secured. Kanzu explained what the Grineer sought. Anko had discovered the remains of Gara, the Unum's champion, and had studied them extensively. The glass Warframe had been a figure of legend among the Ostrons, a protector who had given everything to defend the tower and its people during the Old War. Her sacrifice had ended the sentient assault on Cetus, but her body had been scattered across the plains, her legacy preserved only in whispered stories and the secret research of scholars like Anko. The Lotus tracked an off-world shipment to a Grineer galleon in orbit above Earth. If Heck had recovered any additional shards, they would be stored there. The operator infiltrated the vessel, but the Lotus found her scanning capabilities blocked by the ship's internal systems. It was Saya who provided the solution, the same harmonic principle that allowed codex scanners to detect the fragments could be applied on a larger scale. The Lotus subjected the entire vessel to a broad frequency sweep, visible as pulses of blue light washing through the corridors. As the operator fought through the ship's defenders, Saya and Kanzu found themselves reminiscing. They spoke of how Saya and Anko's research had benefited Cetus, how their discoveries had strengthened the colony's defenses and deepened their understanding of the ancient technologies surrounding them. But Saya admitted the cost. Their dedication to Cetus had come at the expense of their relationship with each other. The work had consumed them, leaving little room for the simple joys of life together. The operator recovered the shard from the galleon's vault and returned to Earth. One piece remained, and Saya believed she knew where to find it. Saya directed the operator to the Central Plains, near a small lake where Anko had once discovered artifacts of great significance, but she insisted they wait for nightfall. The Grineer avoided the plains after dark, and for good reason. The Knights belonged to something far more dangerous than soldiers. The Eidolon Terrorless, massive sentient constructs that wandered the plains in search of their lost wholeness, emerged from the waters to roam freely. The operator arrived at the lake to find an entire battalion of Grineer locked in a hopeless combat against a single Eidolon Terrorless. Vahek, in his arrogance, had sent his soldiers to their deaths rather than abandon the search. The Lotus advised caution. The operator was not yet equipped to face such an enemy. They slipped past the carnage and into a cave near the shore. Inside, they found the remnants of Orokin technology, ancient devices half buried in stone. The final shard lay beneath a perfectly circular rock. Back aboard the orbiter, the operator assembled the completed key and opened the coffer. Inside, they found not research notes or ancient secrets, but a single iron flower, the very same flower Kanzu had given Saya so many years ago. Saya's vigil ended that night. After half a decade of grief, of accusations, of desperate hope, she finally allowed herself to let go. And in letting go, she found something unexpected, the courage to follow her heart to the man who had waited patiently all along. When the operator next visited Cetus, they found Saya standing beside Kanzu, her hand in his, the iron flower finally where it belonged. Apostasy Prologue. A violet holographic orb appears in the operator's personal quarters aboard the orbiter. Upon interacting with it, the operator is transported to Lua, specifically to the reservoir where the Tenno once slept in cryostasis. On Lua, a second orb generates a purple trail that guides the operator through the reservoir. Along this path, audio fragments play past conversations between Margulis and Ballas from before Margulis was executed by the Jade Light. The trail leads to a pit. At the end of this corridor is a pod containing the Lotus, connected to it by wires attached to the back of her head. She offers a greeting, but before the operator can respond, Ballas appears and answers instead. He apologizes to her for being away for so long. The Lotus attempts to clarify that she is not Margulis, but Ballas dismisses this, extending his hand and releasing a wave of energy that severs her connection to the pod. The Lotus removes her helmet, takes Ballas's hand, and the two walk into a bright light and disappear. When the operator attempts to follow, an energy shockwave knocks them back. They are left holding the Lotus's discarded helmet. Returning to the orbiter, Ordis announces he will search for the Lotus's location and will synthesize her mission directives in the interim. From this point forward, all transmissions previously delivered by the Lotus are replaced by a purple holographic projection, with occasional audio and visual static indicating Ordis's imperfect simulation. The Sacrifice. The quest begins with a whisper from the Lotus, drawing attention to her helmet left behind in the personal quarters. Touching it triggers a vision, a black and gold Warframe being subdued and destroyed on Earth by Ballas with sentience assisting him. Investigation of the location from this vision, a courtyard on Earth, reveals traces of the destroyed Warframe. A Nakana embedded near a cherry blossom tree, a shawl hanging from stone, and a helmet remains. Ordis synthesizes these traces and identifies the Warframe as Excalibur Umbra, but the data is incomplete. Trace minerals on the Nakana point toward Lua. On Lua, a unique terminal blocks progress, an Orokin memory cipher that cannot be bypassed. It requires genuine memory sequences to unlock. Beyond it lies a dome that once contained Excalibur Umbra, along with an Orokin tablet covered in spiraling glyphs. This tablet is identified as a Vitruvian. Ordis urges its destruction, but it is taken back for analysis instead. When inserted into the orbiter system, something goes wrong. The ship tilts, lights fail momentarily, and when Ortis recovers, his personality has shifted.
I have been upgraded, Starchild. Your Warframe blueprint now has the required data.
His precepts regulating emotional capacity have gone offline. He speaks in a flat, emotionless tone and addresses the operator as Starchild. Excalibur Umbra can now be built. When transference is attempted on the completed Excalibur Umbra, he violently rejects it. This should not be possible. Warframes are controlled through transference. Umbra displays something unexpected: sentience. During the struggle, transference briefly succeeds and a memory surfaces. A man lies in a hospital bed, unable to speak. Ballas stands beside him along with a Dax soldier, the man's son, named Isa. Ballas communicates telepathically with the bedridden man, threatening to kill his son. Umbra escapes the orbiter. His rejection of transference and the emergence of this memory unlock a section of the Vitruvian. In this recording, Ballas curses the Sentients for their betrayal in starting the Old War. The Vitruvian entries are revealed to be messages intended for Hunhow, containing secrets about the Warframes. Excalibur Umbra is tracked across multiple locations. Each confrontation requires void abilities to stun him and force transference, triggering additional memories. In the second memory, the man and Ballas play Comey together. Ballas commends the man's heroism and gestures to a portrait commemorating his service as a Dax soldier. He asks Isa if he will follow in his father's footsteps. Telepathically, Ballas explains the game represents his intent to cull the man's bloodline as punishment for attempting to interfere with his defection to the Sentients.
You see, these are the stakes of this little game. Each stone I capture will be another, and another, and another, culled from your subversive bloodline.
The corresponding Vitruvian entry, labeled Warframes, reveals their true nature. Warframes were created from human subjects converted into infested hybrids through the Helminth. This was the Orokin's method for fighting the Sentients. Ballas calls them a failure because they turned on their creators, but notes a secret hidden within the void. In the third memory, the man struggles to breathe as infested growth clouds his vision. He is losing at Comey. Ballas telepathically monologues that he betrayed the Orokin after lifetimes of planning, all because they killed Margulis despite having a hand in her death. He explains that the infested is cultivating within the man, slowly transforming him into a Warframe. Not just any Warframe, but one designed to carry a single burning memory. This miracle requires a sacrifice. The man places his Comey stone into a trap. The next Vitruvian entry, Tenno, explains that the Orokin kept the ZARIMAN survivors in the reservoir and used transference to merge their minds into Warframes. Ballas sent the reservoir's coordinates to Hunhow but warned him not to underestimate them, as they accomplished what the Orokin could not. On Lua, Excalibur Umbra is confronted one last time. The final memory plays. Ballas instructs the Dax soldier, now fully transformed into Excalibur Umbra, to kill Isa. This is the sacrifice. This is what creates the single burning memory that defines Umbra's existence. After the memory concludes, a black and gold void space appears with a single path leading to a tree. At the end of the path, Excalibur Umbra sits, weeping. A choice is made to kneel beside him. Eventually, Umbra accepts the operator and allows transference. The Vitruvian's final recording explains, the Orokin broke the minds of the Warframes, but the Tenno, through their own experiences aboard the ZARIMAN, were able to see inside these broken creatures and take away their pain. Excalibur Umbra is now fully controllable. Unlike standard Warframes, his sentience allows him to fight independently when not being piloted. His radial blind ability has been upgraded to a radial howl, which strips sentient damage resistances. Excalibur Umbra returns to the courtyard on Earth to confront Ballas. Surprised at their arrival, Ballas sets a tree ablaze and summons sentients to fight. After they are dealt with, Ballas commands Umbra to stop. A modified transference bolt forces Umbra's body to halt against his will. Ballas approaches, boasting. He does not notice the Skyjadi Nakana impaling him until it's too late. Umbra hesitates, attempting to release his grip on the blade. The operator standing beside Umbra in their true form holds his arm in place and drives the blade deeper. Ballas speaks cryptically about being just the stone while she is the hand, referencing that she has foreseen these events. As Ballas falls, more sentients arrive. A much larger sentient descends, NATAH, in combat form unlike anything seen before. She claims Ballast did nothing to her. This is what she is. The surrounding sentients open fire. Excalibur Umbra pulls the operator to safety. NATAH retrieves Ballast's body and delivers a warning. "Mother, I am coming home," and departs. The quest ends with confusion and disbelief. NATAH has revealed herself. Ballast's fate is uncertain. The Lotus is gone. Following completion, encounters with the man in the wall take on new significance. He asks if things are feeling better, kiddo. The response, "I killed him, Isa." The man in the wall confirms this is how the memory is being remembered, and he responds with good and vanishes. The line between the operator's identity and Umbra's memories has blurred, mixing due to transference, an implication that has not been touched on since. Chimera. Within the Orbiter's personal quarters, the man in the wall manifests upon the plinth bearing the Lotus's abandoned helmet. The entity dons the headgear with sinister laughter before vanishing, leaving the helmet behind. When the operator touches the helmet, they are transported to Lua. The operator pursues the man in the wall through the reservoir as the entity continues wearing the Lotus's helmet. 3 times during the chase, the man in the wall traps the operator within barriers, forcing them to battle shadow-like reflections of the Lotus. The pursuit leads through the reservoir and into the chamber of the Lotus, the same location where the operator witnessed the Lotus depart with Ballast during the Apostasy Prologue. A portal awaits at the chamber's end. Beyond the portal lies a chamber of sentient design. Here the operator relinquishes direct control, navigating only through void sling toward points of glowing light. At the chamber's far end, they discover Ballast, now transformed by sentient corruption, lamenting the loss of his Orokin beauty and cursing the Lotus for her deception. Ballast reveals that his glowing eye carries the Lotus's vision, and the operator must evade his gaze using void sling points throughout the room or risk detection. As Ballast speaks, metal fragments descend and assemble into a sword at the chamber's center. Sensing the presence of the devil, Ballast instructs the operator to claim the sentient flare for the war to come. As the operator grasps the blade, Ballast turns to face them, and the Lotus's whisper calls out. The operator awakes aboard the orbiter as though from a vision, now holding the blueprint for the paracesis. Vox Solaris. The operator arrives in Fortuna, a debt internment colony buried beneath the frozen surface of Venus. Here, the Solaris people toil under the tyrannical grip of NATAH, their bodies repossessed piece by piece when they fail to meet impossible quotas. Yutiko directs the operator to Thursby, a young merchant drowning in inherited debt. Thursby had assumed his parents' financial burden and now faces the threat of total repossession. Brain shelving, the act of repossessing all body parts and leaving the individual's brain alive without a body. Thursby enlists the operator to steal supplies from Corpus caches in Orbvalis, hoping better merchandise will help him meet his quota. Emboldened by their success, he suggests a bolder strike, destroying Nathaniel's coolant tower before his investor showcase. Yutiko intercepts the transmission with alarm. Thursby spoke on an unsecured channel, and the Corpus have been listening. The operator pursues and destroys a Corpus spy drone while Yutiko erases the incriminating recording. She warns the operator against further involvement, but her warning goes unheeded. The business, a conservationist working to preserve the Valis' endangered species, also serves Solaris United directly. He recruits the operator to strike back against NATAH's repo squads, proposing they deliver a K-bomb to the enforcers. Yutiko overrules him, demanding stealth over spectacle. The operator infiltrates a Corpus bunker and recovers a hit list revealing that the business's conservation field team has been targeted. They race to intervene but arrive too late. 4 members lie dead, and the rest have been dragged away for processing. The operator assaults the holding site and frees the survivors, but NATAH has already taken his revenge elsewhere. Thursby is repossessed. Yutiko is devastated. The medics cannot say whether Thursby will survive. Too much of him is simply gone. She blames the operator, before retreating into desperate diplomacy, attempting to appeal to NATAH's non-existent mercy. Her efforts prove futile. NATAH activates an unfinished Orokin coolant tower for a test run, and its unstable systems threaten a heat cascade that would devastate the entire Valis. Yutiko sends the operator to mine amethyst, a mineral that can stabilize the tower. but they cannot gather enough in time. The tower malfunctions during the test, and Nef Anyo demands 50 workers for repossession in retaliation. The failure breaks something open in Yutiko. She finally recognizes that appeasement has only ever bought time, never safety. She tells the operator they may leave if they wish, but they are the only thing standing between the Solaris and annihilation. The operator chooses to stay. Yutiko takes the business's K-bomb and sends the operator to deploy it against the Corpus forces amassing outside of Fortuna's gates. As the explosion tears through enemy ranks, Yutiko reclaims her former identity, Vox Solaris, the voice of the resistance. She announces the return of Solaris United, declares the operator their messenger, and demands an immediate halt to all repossessions. Nef Anyo dismisses Vox as a ghost and deploys the Prophet Taker Orb, a colossal spider machine to blockade Fortuna. The operator has no means to fight such a weapon and is forced to retreat, but Yutiko has one final gambit. She provides the operator with a K-Drive hoverboard to slip past the Prophet Taker undetected and seize control of Nef Anyo's prized coolant tower. With the tower primed to overheat and explode during his investor showcase, Vox delivers her ultimatum: meet Solaris' demands or watch his Fortuna burn. Nef Anyo calls her bluff. Vox counters without hesitation. The Solaris would rather die than continue living in servitude. As the overheat sequence nears completion, Nef Anyo finally relents. The operator delivers the Emerast, stabilizing the tower and averting catastrophe. Nef Anyo's investors abandon him in disgust. The Solaris have won a reprieve, not freedom, but proof that resistance is possible. Solaris United lives again, and the operator has become its blade. Rising tide. The operator needs a ship of their own, not a set designed for infiltration and extraction, a warship. The Railjack was the Tenno's answer to capital ship engagement during the Old War. These vessels combined Orokin engineering with Tenno combat philosophy. They could go toe-to-toe with sentient battle carriers dancing through fields of fire that would obliterate conventional craft. The technology to construct them was lost during the collapse, but not everything was destroyed. Cephalon Psi reaches out. This tactical AI served aboard a Railjack during the Old War, his consciousness preserved in a damaged casing that the operator recovers from a derelict station. Psi's personality is blunt to the point of rudeness, his tactical assessments delivered without cushioning or diplomacy. He informs the operator that their current capabilities are insufficient for the coming conflict. He provides specifications for Railjack construction. He makes clear that failure to meet these specifications will result in death. The construction process is enormous. A dry dock must be established in the operator's personal dojo or clan facility. Components must be recovered from across the system, some from Grenier military installations, others from Corpus research facilities, still others from derelict structures that have drifted in the void since the collapse. The Railjack takes shape piece by piece, a skeleton that becomes a frame, that becomes a hull, that becomes a weapon. Psi provides guidance throughout, his tactical knowledge invaluable despite his abrasive delivery. He explains the Railjack's systems: navigation that allows void jumps without solar rails, weapons that engage multiple targets simultaneously, defensive systems that regenerate through mechanisms the Corpus would kill to understand. The ship is not merely transportation, it is an extension of the operator's combat capability. The completed Railjack represents something the Tenno have not possessed since the Old War: independence from planetary infrastructure. The ability to project force across stellar distances without relying on relay stations or support networks. When the conflict comes, and Psi makes clear that conflict is inevitable, the operator will face it in a vessel worthy of their heritage. ERRA. The visions intensify. The operator experiences moments from the Old War, fragments of memory that do not belong to them. They see NATAH before she became the Lotus, a sentient infiltrator carrying out her mission against the Tenno. They see her brother, ERRA, supposedly destroyed during the conflict. They see the relationship between siblings who were designed for war. ERRA is not dead. The visions reveal his presence on the sentient staging ground where the invasion force prepares. He has rebuilt himself from scattered components, his hatred preserved across centuries. He manipulates NATAH, preying on the confusion created by her dual nature. The Lotus chose the Tenno over her birth family, ERRA refuses to accept this choice. He intends to restore his sister to what she was meant to be. The operator gains glimpses of the coming assault. Sentient forces gather in numbers that dwarf anything the Origin system can field. ERRA commands his sister to sing and gather the troops, an ability related to their mother, causing a shockwave that pushes the operator away. Heart of Deimos. Deimos calls. The third moon of Mars has always been strange, marked with Orokin architecture but writhing with infestation. It was not always like this. Belric, a foundry operator, and Rania, a void engineer. They were a married couple stationed on the moon of Deimos with their Warframe protector, Citrine. Deimos was the home of the Entrati family's research facility. During the Old War, the Sentients launched a massive assault on Deimos, likely to destroy the void research hidden inside. The Sentients knew full well of their weakness. What better way than to destroy the home of it entirely? This is of course an inference based on what we know, but the knowledge contained in this quest proves how right the Sentients were. Belric and Rania saw that there was no way to stop the Sentients from seizing the void technology, so they opted to destroy it along with Deimos using an infested biobomb, sacrificing themselves in the process. But their beloved Warframe Citrine wouldn't let that happen. Before the bomb would go off, turning Deimos into the cesspool it is now, Citrine would sacrifice herself and encase the lovers in crystal, embracing for eternity. The Entrati family has maintained a presence on Deimos. They are not merely Orokin survivors, but direct descendants of Albrecht Entrati himself. They continued his research across generations, delving deeper into the nature of reality. Mother, father, daughter, son, and grandmother. The infestation consumed their original bodies but preserved their minds. Their consciousness bound to the organic mass that now comprises Deimos' surface. They cannot leave. They cannot die. They can only persist, maintaining fragments of their former lives while their memories erode and their relationships calcify into bitter dysfunction. This is why most of them don't remember their names. Upon arrival at Deimos, the operator meets with Lloyd and Otak, cephalons that share the same body with almost opposite personalities. Lloyd explains that the gray strain has overrun Deimos, threatening to compromise the heart. Upon meeting Mother, the daughter of Albrecht Entrati, she lets you know what the heart is. She tells you that it is her father's legacy, a heart that pumps void energy to all Orokin devices, including the Warframes. If it should be compromised, then the Warframes, along with every other void-powered thing in the Origin system, would cease to function. The operator proceeds to the Cambion Drift where they encounter a Necromech, a means for combat created by Albrecht. After the Necromech dies from fighting off the infested, the operator heads back to the Necrolis to help Daughter with her sample collection that was destroyed by her brother. In the Cambion Drift, they are introduced to Fass and Vohm, twin worms that periodically kill one another, shifting control. One fires a laser at the other, blowing it into viscera scattered across the Cambion Drift, until the one destroyed is revived and the cycle continues. The operator collects these samples for Daughter. She warns them to watch out for her brother who has been disowned by the family due to his wrongdoings. With the use of an esophage, the operator travels deep within Deimos, to the cave system that contains the heart. While traveling, they meet Sun, who unleashed the gray strain on Deimos to garner attention from his family. As the operator reaches the heart, a pulse disrupts their Warframe's functionality for a moment. Then a rogue Necromech destroys the heart, forcing the operator to switch into a Necromech. The family sets aside their differences this one time to repair the heart. Back in the Necrolis, the operator meets with Grandmother. She tells them that the family will come together provided that there is a crisis, to which the operator responds, "Wait, did you?" implying that she orchestrated the events thus far to help bring the family back together. The Maker. The operator witnesses a scene aboard the sentient mothership. ERRA stands before NATAH and delivers grim news. Their mother is dead. NATAH had wrongly believed her mother to still be alive. ERRA urges NATAH to finish the war, claiming she possesses her fire, implying she has inherited their mother's power or purpose. NATAH resists. She tells ERRA that she remembers ordering the Tenno to attack him, and that he was destroyed in that assault. ERRA dismisses this, insisting that she remembers wrong, and requires time to fully heal from what the Makers had done to her. The term Makers refers to the Orokin. NATAH remains unconvinced. She gestures toward a figure nearby, Ballas, one of the Orokin executors, apparently kept on a leash like a prisoner. She asks ERRA directly if Ballas is one of these Makers. Rather than answer, ERRA seizes NATAH and throws her onto a pedestal behind him. She becomes trapped within a field of energy, unable to move. ERRA repeats his command for her to finish the war, then drops Ballas's leash. Ballas rises to his feet. His posture and demeanor make it immediately clear that his imprisonment was never real. It was a performance. Ballas and ERRA stand together in silence, watching NATAH struggle against her restraints. This prologue sets the stage for a conflict and alliance between sentient forces and one of the most knowledgeable figures from the Orokin era, someone who understands the Tenno, the Warframes, and the Lotus more intimately than perhaps anyone else alive. The New War. A Murex arrives at Cetus on Earth and crashes into the Unum's tower. As an Ostron child watches in horror, ERRA approaches and removes their Excalibur mask, telling them not to be afraid. On the plains of Eidolon, Grineer forces engage the sentient invasion. A Tusk Firebolt attacks a Chondrix but is knocked down from the sky, killing all crew except one, Call-175. He retrieves a fallen brother's Grakata and struggles to stand as Counselor Vahek orders him to regroup at his beacon. En route to the beacon, a Tusk Bolcor crashes nearby. A squad of Dargans flees sentient pursuers. One is shot down. Call moves to help but finds the pilot is dead. He stares at the Chondrix in the distance and asks what the mission is now. Vahek tells him there is no mission. Approaching the Chondrix would be suicide. Call has another idea. Feed the Chondrix a bomb. He advances through the sentient resistance, using stealth to avoid search parties, and reaches an encampment where he acquires explosives. As he prepares, a small Grineer squad and Tusk Thumper charge the Chondrix. The Thumper is shot out of the air mid-jump and crashes beside Call, knocking him down. A sentient approaches and kills the other Grineer. Nearby lies a dead Rhino Warframe. Call wrestles the Corinth Prime from its grip and uses it to kill the approaching enemy. He makes his final stand at the base of the Chondrix. After killing a Symbolist with the butt of his weapon followed by 3 consecutive shots, Call weakly approaches the Chondrix. He drops his gun, slumps down, and arms the bomb. As he begins to declare his speech for the Queens, he pauses. He changes his words. For my brothers. The bomb halts mid-activation. Call opens his eyes. ERRA stands before him. On a Corpus ship in the Veil Proxima, Technician Veso takes panicked breaths as alarms blare. Outside the window, Corpus and Grineer fleets have united against the sentient invasion. Alid V broadcasts a speech and calls upon all techs to engage the ship's command overrides. Veso discovers that sentients have infiltrated their grid network, causing Corpus Robotics to turn rogue. He navigates through the ship using breacher MOAs, shield drones, and striker MOAs to bypass obstacles and disable security. As he nears the final command override, Alid V questions the delay while mentioning needing to stand down fire control, meaning to stop all offensive weapon operations. Confused, Veso is told to look outside and hurry before they are under new management. After disabling the final override, Alid V orders all crew to stand down. He has negotiated with the enemy for profit. A Murex latches onto the ship. Veso realizes Alid V intends to betray the Corpus Board of Directors. In defiance, he reactivates fire controls and orders the crew to blast into the heart of the enemy. The Murex is destroyed. The resulting shockwave tears the Corpus ship apart. Meanwhile, a railjack arrives at the battle. An unlikely alliance has formed. Grineer, Corpus, and Tenno forces engage the sentient fleet in the Veil Proxima. Teshin coordinates from the railjack, denying entrance to the mothership until he has destroyed the Orphix fields protecting it. After a boarding party sabotages the railjack's slingshot, repairs are made, and Teshin launches toward the mothership. Inside, Teshin cuts through sentient defenders. The enemies are protected by elemental shields that require matching elemental damage to destroy. He locates and disables Orphix fields by destroying their energy locks and fighting off sentient guardians. Between the second and third Orphix, a strange red projection affects him. He briefly recalls reprimanding the operator before shaking off the mental intrusion. Upon destroying the final Orphix field, Teshin instructs the operator not to follow. He will scout ahead alone. The perspective shifts to first person. Someone tired and out of breath is being forced by Ballast to watch as Teshin and ERRA duel. Teshin struggles as a mask veil impairs his mind. Ballast reveals his plan: brainwash the masses and end the war in one stroke. Teshin collapses. He manages to remove the veil. ERRA, deeming him a lost cause, crushes his helmet. The operator arrives too late. A void blast knocks ERRA aside. The scene reveals what Ballast has done to the Lotus. She is heavily burned and weakened. Ballast kisses her and appears to drain her life essence. A void portal opens behind her and pulls her in. The operator and their Warframe attempt to hold her back, but Ballast steals the paracesis and severs the Lotus's arm, sending her flying into the portal. Ballast then stabs the operator through the back, casting them into the void. The game returns to the login screen, displaying only the New War logo. Upon logging in, a cutscene shows Ballast seated on a throne as a crowd chants Narmer. With the operator banished, the sentients have won. Ballast rules as a sovereign of a system-wide empire called Narmer. History has been rewritten to defame the Tenno and glorify himself. A mysterious figure disembarks from a Tusk Bolkor and lands on Earth. This figure approaches a Narmer outpost on Earth. Imprisoned Ostrons are held throughout. Within, the Narmer are using mask implants called Narmer veils to brainwash Grineer and Ostron alike, the same technology Ballast used on Teshin. The figure is discovered by a newly veiled Ostron, alerting the sentients. After clearing the area, an attempt to remove the Ostron's veil fails. An Archon arrives, forcing a retreat. The figure escapes on a Tusk Bolkor. The Archon is glimpsed up close, a Mag Prime body with a serpentine head fused to it, created by ERRA via an unknown process, in the battlefields where Sentient and Warframe fell. The figure, codenamed Drifter by Nora Knight, retreats to a camp on Earth, a cavern hiding the orbiter. Approaching the rear of the ship, the hood comes down. The Drifter is revealed to be an aged version of the operator. Ortis, now inhabiting a floating sentinel body, has been tending to what remains of the Lotus in her Eidolon form. The Drifter leaves, telling Ortis that he knows someone who can help. A Corpus dropship is needed to move freely through the Origin system. The destination, Fortuna, Venus. The Drifter descends into Fortuna. The brainwashed Solaris sings praises to Narmer and Ballast. Narmer deacons patrol the area and must be avoided. Little Duck, who has escaped capture, makes contact and instructs the Drifter to take a K-drive to Spaceport and use a Narmer veil to bypass security. Donning the veil causes distorted visions of the Lotus that attempt to twist memories. The visions claim Ballast was the true father figure and that the Lotus was manipulating the Tenno all along. Inside the Spaceport, deacons can remotely detonate the veil if anomalies are detected. Deep inside, the veil's deception becomes unbearable. The mask is torn off, the Narmer Veil factory is destroyed, and a Condor dropship is commandeered to escape. The Drifter travels to Uranus. Inside a base, Narmer forces attack, but unexpected aid arrives. The Stalker. The Stalker brings the Drifter before Hunhow. Both want the Lotus freed. An alliance is formed. Hunhow explains the nature of the Archons, twisted abominations created from Warframe remains. Archon Boreal, the owl, commands a trident and piercing cry attached to a Loki Prime body. Archon Amar, the wolf, attacks with flame, slashes, and mirror clones attached to a Rhino Prime body. Archon Nera, the snake, wields a crackling whip, lightning, and a petrifying gaze attached to a Mag Prime body. Each Archon can raise dead sentients. Their power may be used to save the Lotus. Before departure, Hunhow bestows the NATAH, a sentient bow. The Drifter must fight through both Narmer and sentient forces to escape. The scene shifts to first person aboard the ZARIMAN 10-0. Cephalon Melika instructs a classroom. Students Mathon and Genva sit nearby. For reasons unclear, the operator is puzzled at being present and slow to respond to pledges. The class studies temporal axioms of void travel narrated by Eularia and Trotty. A quiz is given covering theories of time, including presentism and eternalism. Eternalism posits that the past, present, and future exist simultaneously and are all equally real. The quiz asks if a person must choose between saving one parent or the other, which statement is universally true under eternalism. The answer, both outcomes happen. Her parents survive, her parents die. The class is interrupted as the ZARIMAN makes its void jump. Back in the present, the Drifter checks on the Lotus. Hunhao instructs them to defeat the Archons and harvest their power to heal her. Ordis asks why void powers are not being used. The Drifter reveals the truth. The powers were not lost, they were never received. The 3 Archons are spread across the origin system. 2 must be defeated to progress. All Archons can teleport, resurrect sentience, and become invulnerable at low health while grappling the Drifter. Upon first death, the Stalker appears to revive. ERRA questions Hunhao's interference. Hunhao argues that ERRA is being used by Ballas. Hunhao demands ERRA stands down, accusing him of behaving like a Dax in servitude to the Orokin. ERRA swears they will find and bring back NATAH. After depleting the first Archon's health, it rises before the exhausted Drifter. The Stalker appears, delivers the final blow, and rips out its shard. The shard is brought to the Lotus. It partially restores her body. She demands more, then suddenly snaps. The scene cuts back to the ZARIMAN. The classroom door is barricaded. The void has driven the adults mad. The prospective character, the young operator, remains calm and consoles the other children. They approach a Tenno tapping on the wall. Offering light, the tapper turns around. It's the man in the wall. The scene cuts back. The Drifter deals the decisive blow personally and harvests the second shard. It is given to the Lotus, restoring more of her body. She does not recognize the Drifter. She turns hostile. The Lotus corners the Drifter. Ordis sacrifices his drone body to shield them. The scene shifts to the moment aboard the ZARIMAN when the operator accepts the man in the wall's offer, a handshake granting void powers. This connection passes to the Drifter, who fires a void beam to repel the Lotus's attack. When the smoke clears, the operator has taken the Drifter's place. The Lotus eases upon seeing them and departs. Ballas senses the operator's return. His fury remotely detonates the veils on nearby deacons. He instructs ERRA to recall the sentient fleet. NATAH will come to them, and he will command her to kill the operator. The operator travels to the ZARIMAN 10-0, now half emerged from a void portal. Following visions and whistling from the Drifter leads to a dormizone. A table is set for 2. The Drifter sits across from the operator. The truth is revealed. The Drifter is an alternate reality version of the operator. Under Eternalism, both outcomes of the man in the wall's offer exist simultaneously. The Drifter is the version who never received void powers and was never rescued, having refused the deal and remaining trapped on the ZARIMAN. How the Drifter escaped the void and recovered the Lotus's body is not explained. The paradox allows only one to exist in regular space. A choice is made. Who will face Ballas? This selection is purely cosmetic. Both gain access to the same abilities going forward. Awakening on the orbiter, Ordis confirms he has lifted the ship from stasis. Access to warframes and equipment is restored. A rebuilt paracesis is found. The Lotus's helmet reveals her destination, Cetus to commandeer a Murex. The operator enters Cetus through the back of the Quill's base. An Orphix field blocks the warframe. Moving through as the operator, Narmer veils are removed from Kanzu, Fisher Hyluck, Master Tisanai, and Hawk, using Void Sling. With Kanzu's help, a blimp provides passage to the Unum Tower. The warframe is recovered inside. Scaling the tower using void energy on reactive crystals, the top is reached as the Murex prepares to retreat. The Unum awakens and stops time, allowing the operator to board. Aboard the Murex, the Lotus engages the sentients but warns that this is not your fight. Pressing forward, the Lotus gains control over the sentient forces and reveals Ballas's true plan. The sentient mothership Prakasa was designed during the Old War to consume stars. Ballas intends to use it on the origin system's sun. Deep within the Murex, the Lotus attacks. The beam must be redirected onto her battleless bodyguards. The mechanism she uses to leave ejects the operator from the ship. Sai and the Railjack retrieve them. The Lotus weakens the Murex blockade. The Railjack's Tunguska cannon clears a path for a void jump toward the sun. The sun's intensity slows the Railjack. Periodic heat waves deal massive damage, requiring cover behind Murex wreckage. Ballas broadcasts his true intention: destroy the origin system and sacrifice his Narmer Empire. The sun will fuel the mothership's escape to the Tau system. The Lotus rams her Murex into Prakasa, creating a shockwave that causes catastrophic damage to the Railjack. After repairs, a Necromech is launched into the mothership. A Typhulus confronts the Necromech on arrival. ERRA destroys it. ERRA has realized, too late, that Ballas's plan dooms the sentients as well. A truce is formed. He guides the way forward, holding debris to allow passage before being seemingly crushed. 3 Orphix generators must be disabled along with their sentient guardians. Once complete, the Warframe is summoned to defeat the final Archon and harvest its shard. The Lotus approaches Ballas, who demands she kneel and beg. The arrival of the Operator distracts her. Ballas attacks, and the Operator pushes the Lotus aside, taking the blow instead. Ballas forces the Archon shard to drop, claims it, and absorbs it. He takes control of the Lotus and commands her to attack. Damage to the Warframe forces a switch to Operator form. The sun's presence causes continual damage. The Lotus's beam must be redirected onto Narmer lenses around the room. Narmer deacons reinforce and must be dispatched. This cycle repeats until all 5 projections are destroyed. The Lotus's control weakens. She attacks Ballas before collapsing. Ballas turns his beam on the Operator. It must be lured to remaining Narmer lenses. He taunts them, then attacks the Lotus, lowering his shields. Void Beam can now damage him directly. With all mirrors destroyed, Ballas makes a final stand. He seizes the Paracesis and stabs the Lotus. As he appears victorious, a Narmer veil is forced onto him. He sees Margulis in place of the Lotus. Deluded, he kisses the illusion. The Lotus reclaims her essence and ends Ballas. The man in the wall emerges, a massive multi-armed, multi-legged humanoid form embedded in a wall, with the Operator's doppelganger seated atop it. It overwhelms the Lotus. Distorted words are spoken. It vanishes. The war is over. The Lotus is carried back to Lua. She claims she did not see the man in the wall. She saw nothing. Narmer is shattered. Its leader is a martyr. Voluntary loyalists remain active, but the Empire has fallen. The Lotus struggles to balance her 3 identities: herself, NATAH, and Margulis. A choice is offered. One voice will lead the others. The selection is permanent. Her appearance can be customized afterwards, but the name remains. The origin system begins to recover. Muric's wreckage dots the landscapes. The plains of Eidolon bear heavy damage. The Orb Vallis has warmed, snow melting to reveal patches of grass. Teshin is replaced by a gray hologram following his death at ERRA's hand. New questions remain. The paradox of the Drifter's origins. The threads binding everything to a nameless void entity. Now the Tenno face a war of not only body, but spirit and mind. Part 4. The Void War. Angels of the ZARIMAN. The ZARIMAN 10-0. That cursed vessel which had been lost to the void so long ago coalesces one final time from the boundary between dimensions. As it emerges, the ship begins to sing, emitting a strange sonic transmission that echoes across the system. On Lua, the Operator's parental figure, whether they know her as NATAH, Lotus, or Margulis, delivers a solemn message. If the Operator is ever to reclaim their childhood home, the moment is now. The ZARIMAN is their rightful inheritance. The Operator travels to the ZARIMAN, which now appears on the star chart above the void itself. They are not the first to arrive. Kuver Grineer forces have already begun occupying the derelict vessel, attempting to claim its secrets. As the Operator ventures deeper into the ship, communications with their parental figure deteriorate, her voice drowned out by the pervasive song that saturates the ZARIMAN's halls. Upon approaching the reliquary drive, that mysterious chamber housing the severed finger of the Indifference, a violent surge forces the Operator out of transference. Before they can react, a terrifying creature attacks them, and consciousness fades to black. The Operator awakens to discover they are not alone on the ZARIMAN. They are greeted by the Holdfasts, the last survivors of the original ZARIMAN crew. These beings exist in an ethereal, ghost-like state, their forms sustained through a phenomenon called conceptual embodiment, the same interaction between consciousness and the void that converts thoughts and memories into physical manifestations. Their leader, Quinn, explains the nature of the creature that attacked the Operator. Her name was Kira, and she was once one of them. Now she is a void angel, a holdfast who has succumbed to the song, transformed into another twisted manifestation of the void's hunger. Quinn implores the Operator for assistance. A void cascade is breaking down reality itself, and the holdfast cannot stop it alone. The Operator transfers back into their warframe. A holdfast named Humbask establishes communication, her voice carrying an undercurrent of doubt. She confesses that the holdfasts are hungry, just as Kira became hungry, and she questions whether any of them truly possess the resolve to resist the song's call. The operator works to purge exorcisers of corrupting void energy. Each device is contaminated by rifts that can only be destroyed through the operator's own void powers. Proximity to these rifts interferes with transference, a dangerous vulnerability. Once the rifts are sealed, void manifestations appear from them and emerge Thrax-Centurions, which Quinn recognizes as facsimiles or copies of Grineer's soldiers, conjured whole cloth by the void itself. These spectral soldiers must be wounded in their physical form before being finished with void damage. Amidst the chaos of battle, Quinn reminisces about what the ZARIMAN once was, before the accident, before the horrors. The operator finds themselves joining in, their shared memories surfacing. At the mission's conclusion, Quinn's voice cuts to static. When he returns, strain evident in his tone, he admits he was fighting off the song. It grows stronger as the ZARIMAN's corruption deepens. Quinn insists the operator is duty-bound to protect the ZARIMAN. The operator hesitates, reluctant to be imprisoned by the weight of their traumatic past. Their conversation is interrupted by urgent warnings. A void flood has begun. Archimedean Yanta takes over communications, explaining more about the nature of conceptual embodiment and the holdfast's precarious existence. Quinn elaborates on what distinguishes the holdfast from the void angels they might become. Yanta reveals that the angels are breaking through the Albrecht membrane, the barrier between real space and the void. Having damaged the Vitoplast system she designed to seal void ruptures automatically, she provides the operator with a drone to gather stray Vitoplasts and seal the ruptures manually. As the operator works to stem the flood, Quinn speaks of how the ZARIMAN once stood for hope. He begins reciting the ZARIMAN crew pledge, and the operator completes it alongside him, words they have not spoken in years, yet they have never forgotten. Once all 3 void ruptures are sealed and the Thrax-Centurion Guardian is destroyed, the immediate crisis passes. Quinn reports that the Grineer are damaging the reliquary drive, and the void angels are flocking to it in ever greater numbers. A holdfast named Caballero will show the operator how to deploy the ship's defenses. Something has shifted in the operator now. The shared memories, the recitation of the pledge, they are no longer reluctant. They want to help. Quinn acknowledges this change, and the operator makes a solemn promise. They will care for the ZARIMAN after the holdfasts are gone. Caballero explains the auto-fabricating armaments designed to protect the reliquary drive's eternal relic, built using a resource called argazine. These armaments defend the exodampers that suppress enemy combat capabilities. While securing resources, Caballero and Yanta discuss the nature of the finger relics, those severed digits of the indifference that power the reliquary drives of the Orokin vessels. After 2 exodampers are defended, Kira appears. The operator engages the Void Angel directly, depleting her physical form until she enters a recovery state, releasing a void bubble above her body. The operator leaps into this bubble, entering Kira's void realm in their true form to battle her ethereal essence. When the ethereal releases protective spheres, only Void Sling can strip them away. At last, Kira falls. As she perishes, Quinn's voice comes through one final time. Strained. Fading. He tells the operator he is done for, and asks only that they remember the ZARIMAN's crew. Then silence. Communications with the parental figure re-establish, but the operator's voice carries only defeat. They found nothing here but ghosts. Quinn is not dead. When the operator retrieves his tablet, they discover the truth. The holdfasts have found a new source of sustenance. Rather than drawing from the ZARIMAN's reliquary drive, a connection that was slowly corrupting them, they now draw from the radiance of the operator's own void powers. The operator's presence has given them a chance to endure. Quinn asks only one thing, that the operator remember the good things about the ZARIMAN and create a memorial in the name of Kira and all the others who were lost to the song. The ZARIMAN 10-0 is a home once more, albeit still dangerous. The DUVIRI Paradox. The Drifter exists within DUVIRI, a colorless realm where they are trapped in an endless cycle of execution. Each day, Dax soldiers drag them before Dominus Thrax, the king of DUVIRI, to be killed. Each time they die, the loop resets. One execution proceeds differently. An ethereal sword stabs the Drifter, followed by a meteor crashing down onto the executors. Within the crater lies a disembodied hand that bonds itself to the Drifter, granting them strange new abilities. Armed with a fallen executor's sidearm, the Drifter escapes. Following the hand's guidance, the Drifter encounters obstacles including an ore worm that destroys bridges and Dax patrols hunting them. They acquire a Kaith, a horse-like flying steed, and eventually locate a cave containing a portal. Inside waits Teshin, along with 3 Warframes, Excalibur, Mag, and Volt. Teshin explains that these Warframes arrived in DUVIRI through a paradox. The hand bonded to the Drifter allows them to control these frames. Teshin urges them to break the eternal loop and offers his dual Nakanas, Sun and Moon, to aid in this task. The Drifter also finds a rablet in Teshin's cave, one they apparently named in a previous loop they no longer remember. A spaceship looms in DUVIRI's sky, the ZARIMAN 10-0. Teshin explains the paradox at play. In the history he knows, the ZARIMAN traversed the void and returned. Its child passengers granted mysterious powers over that same void. But here, the ship appears stranded in DUVIRI rather than having returned. 2 histories exist in parallel. Within the Undercroft, a realm where Thrax's influence weakens, the Drifter discovers a book titled Tales of DUVIRI. Dominus Thrax's moods shape DUVIRI itself. As the Drifter progresses, they experience different emotional cycles: wrath, joy, and envy. Each cycle is guided by one of the Thrax's courtiers. Throughout these cycles, the Drifter recovers pieces of a broken figurine. Each piece triggers memory fragments showing a shadowy figure, a child experiencing that emotion aboard the ZARIMAN. The Drifter feels these emotions themselves and comes to understand them in turn. Teshin observes that these memories might belong to Dominus Thrax, and that Thrax himself might be a Tenno from the ZARIMAN. During the envy cycle, the Drifter returns to find Teshin holding them at sword point. He speaks strangely, insisting DUVIRI is the safest place in the universe. When the Drifter mentions the rablet by name, Teshin falters. The Drifter assumes control of their Warframe and fights back, revealing the imposter to be a Dax Gladius controlled by Dominus Thrax. The rablet delivers the finishing blow. With Thrax's power blocking the cave, the Drifter battles towards his stronghold on foot. They commandeer Dax's cave to cross a broken bridge but are thrown into the sky by the ore worm. A voice from the hand guides them, and its power cushions their fall. Strangely, the bridge appears restored behind them. Drifter arrives to find Teshin fatally wounded. Before dying, Teshin asks them to care for the rablet and expresses satisfaction that the Drifter can finally feel emotion again. As the ore worm approaches, the Drifter channels their newfound anger through the hand's power and possesses the creature. Controlling the ore worm, the Drifter battles Thrax's forces and reaches his throne. They recover the final figurine piece, revealing it to be a figure of Dominus Thrax himself. The truth becomes clear. DUVIRI and everything within it, the courtiers, the Dax, the endless loop, were manifested by the Drifter's own childhood trauma aboard the ZARIMAN. The Tales of DUVIRI storybook featuring Thrax and his court was the template. The Drifter had forgotten all of it. A realm of the Drifter's making through conceptual embodiment. Taking their place on the throne, the Drifter finds Thrax reduced to what he always was, a crying child clutching the figurine. The Drifter resets DUVIRI. Teshin is resurrected. The throne returns to Thrax, but something has changed. Teshin acknowledges that the Drifter has earned their way out of the spiral. He asks if they can see it, the other side. The Drifter confirms they can. Freed from DUVIRI's chains, the Drifter owes their escape to the assistance that reached them from beyond the void. Whispers in the Walls. The quest opens with a scene from the distant past. Albrecht Intrati interacts with equipment from a much different time to the Orokin Era, a pager and a computer from the 1990s. He climbs into a coffin alongside his Kavat and whispers final words to his attendant, the original Lloyd. After the coffin seals, Lloyd smashes it. The screen fades to black. In the present day, the Necroloid, Construct Lloyd, summons the operator to DEIMOS. He reports experiencing something that should be impossible, a dream. Constructs do not dream. Yet from this dream, he remembers a single name, Kalimos. This dream functions as a precept, a protocol called the Kalimos sequence. Its purpose is to wake someone referred to as the Sleeper. Lloyd guides the operator through the necrolisc and into Albrecht Entrati's hidden laboratory. During the descent, the cosmic clock collapses into the void, and the walls reveal a concealed staircase leading deep underground. While searching for the Sleeper, the operator and Lloyd encounter sounds that should not exist. Pushing forward, they discover Albrecht's grimoire, a tome that served as his personal diary. The grimoire adapts to the operator's needs and transforms into a weapon. Its origin and the mechanism by which it functions remains unexplained. The operator encounters and fights creatures with no clear origin. These void monstrosities are later formally identified as the Murmur. The Sleeper is located and awakened. He is revealed to be the original Lloyd, the human who served Albrecht before his consciousness was copied into the Necroloid construct. Upon waking, he immediately recognizes that he was awakened for the Kalimo sequence, though he does not know how long he has slept. The human Lloyd references a war happening currently. He cannot be referring to the new war as that conflict has already ended. This means he was placed into stasis during the old war, when the Orokin Empire still stood. The operator arrives at the Sanctum Anatomica and meets the Cavia. The name derives from the scientific genus for guinea pigs, and it is fitting. These are animals that were subjected to void experimentation. They speak only in void tongue, a language the operator cannot understand. The human Lloyd refers to the operator as the chosen operator, mentioned in the Kalimo sequence. However, their inability to comprehend the Cavia's speech makes him skeptical. His frustration runs deeper than mere doubt. There is resentment towards the operator and toward Albrecht himself. The Sanctum contains the vessels, massive bodies with a function similar to Warframes, but on a far larger scale. Albrecht clearly intended for the operator to use them, though their exact purpose remains unclear. The Necroloid Lloyd overrides the human Lloyd's objections and instructs the operator to use a vintage computer on Albrecht's desk. This diverts the operator's transference stream into one of the vessels. What follows is disorienting. It becomes unclear whether the operator has been transported through time or is reliving the memory of a man named Arthur. The date displayed is December 31st, 1999, the turn of the century. Within the vessel, the operator fights creatures resembling the infested and encounters someone who appears to be Albrecht Entrati. Lloyd states that the Indifference, the entity also known as the Man in the Wall, is still on his heels. This detail carries significant implications. Either the Man in the Wall possesses the ability to travel through time, or time does not apply to it at all. The latter possibility aligns with eternalism, the concept that past, present, and future exist simultaneously and are equally real. The operator's doppelganger, the Man in the Wall wearing their face, appears again and speaks cryptically. The Murmur assault the laboratory's sensory network. During the fighting, the Cavia attempt to communicate with the operator, but void tongue remains incomprehensible. The human Lloyd grows increasingly frustrated with what he perceives as unintelligible babbling. The operator is sent to the Netrocells, vault-like structures similar to the isolation vaults elsewhere on Deimos. These require key glyphs to access. One of the Cavia provides the necessary item. Throughout these encounters, the Indifference focuses its provocations on Lloyd rather than the operator. This marks a shift from previous encounters where the operator was its primary target. Following Albrecht's recorded instructions, the operator returns to their orbiter and crafts the Jahu Gargoyle. Jahu translates to form, and gargoyles traditionally serve as wards against evil spirits. The gargoyle grants the ability to understand void tongue, finally allowing the Cavia to communicate what the Man in the Wall has been hinting toward. A vessel harboring the Indifference launches a full assault on the Sanctum Anatomica. The human Lloyd reaches his breaking point and joins the operator in fighting what is called the Fragmented Tide. During the climax, the possessed vessel speaks words directly to the operator. These are the exact words the Man in the Wall spoke at the end of the New War. The quest concludes with the Man in the Wall delivering a monologue about a handshake deal made with the Tenno. He's interrupted by the appearance of Albrecht Entrati, who states, "We end as we began." Speaking with Lloyd afterward, he proposes a course of action, repeating what Albrecht did by traveling back to 1999. The operator arrives late this time. They will need to try again, and Lloyd commits to helping them return on schedule. The Hex. On December 31st, 1999, the citizens of Holvania count down to the new year. A nuclear reactor explodes. The scene shifts back nearly 24 hours before the detonation. Inside the Holvania Central Mall, a proto-frame named Arthur listens to music on a computer. Proto-frames are the 1999 predecessors to Warframes. Arthur is linked to Excalibur, possessing similar abilities and physiology. Without warning, his hand moves on its own and types a message. Under Miras Ave, 10 minutes, don't be late. Recognizing this as a lead on Dr. Albrecht Entrati, Arthur gathers his team. The Hex consists of 6 members. Arthur leads. Amir is linked to Volt, Aoi is linked to Mag, Quincy is linked to Cyto 9, Letitia is linked to Trinity, Eleanor is linked to Nyx. Arthur plans to investigate alone, but is joined by Amir, Aoi, and Quincy as a backup. Letitia and Eleanor remain at the mall to watch the base. Riding his atomocycle through the streets of Holvania, Arthur is confronted by Major Nessie Rusalka and her Skuldra forces, a militarized group resembling the Grineer. Fighting through resistance, he eventually faces an H-04 Effervon tank. After destroying its vents and using a looted rocket launcher to deal critical damage, the tank is destroyed. The plaza collapses into the tunnels below. Arthur is briefly knocked unconscious but is awakened by a telepathic message from Eleanor warning that Entrati is nearby. He sees a figure of Albrecht and his cavat, Kalimos, entering a cave, though Entrati quickly vanishes. Inside, Arthur battles the Tecrot, infested-like creatures that have overtaken computer systems. A series of televisions cause him immense pain. After resisting their influence, the screens explode, revealing an infested mouth that expels an Excalibur Warframe. Both Arthur and this Warframe draw exalted blades and clash. The fight is interrupted. The Drifter attempts transference out of the Excalibur body and into Arthur, delivering visions of the Lotus, the Indifference, and the coming nuclear explosion. Arthur resists and forcibly ejects the Drifter from his body. As the Drifter attempts to recover, Arthur stabs their right hand. Less than 20 hours before the explosion, Rusalka and her lieutenant Victor Vodyanoi interrogate Entrati. Rusalka is revealed to be possessed by the Indifference. She shifts between the forms of Lloyd and Entrati to taunt him. Albrecht remains defiant, reaffirming that the Indifference has a weakness: love. Back at the Holvania Central Mall, the Hex have interrogated the Drifter. Arthur decides to take a chance on them. The two forces agree to work together to stop the nuclear explosion. Quincy and Aoi provide the Drifter with the Excalibur Warframe body, loner weapons, and an atomocycle. The Drifter heads out to engage Skuldra forces. Rusalka publicly announces Entrati's capture and brands the Hex as terrorists, promising to bring them to justice. Attempting to reach Entrati's holding cell, the Drifter instead encounters the Indifference in its operator form. It flashes an ominous grin and vanishes. Skuldra forces descend on the area in massive numbers, 14 hours and 5 minutes before the explosion. The Drifter and the Hex decide to stop the nuke directly. Riding out with Quincy, they engage Tecrot forces in a survival operation. Tecrot enemies can overtake Hell Scrubbers, environmental support systems spawning Tecrot Babao creatures that reduce available life support. During the mission, Amir attempts to hack into Holvania's public systems. Instead, he accidentally activates MP3 files. Communications go dead. 11 hours and 30 minutes before the explosion. Amir plays music over the comms. Aoi enjoys it. Arthur does not. The Drifter and Arthur encounter Kalimos, who leads them to a hidden backroom. Using a POM-2 terminal and the password Kalimos, the Drifter accesses a message from Entrati. Entrati warns that both he and the Drifter are trapped in an altered time loop. To contain the murmur and escape, Entrati requires a power source, the nuclear explosion itself. The backroom becomes a base of operations. The Drifter uses it to reclaim their equipment from the present time. Amir and Aoi report finding a VIP being transported by the Skuldra. En route to rendezvous with Aoi, the Drifter finds her pinned beneath a truck. After lifting it off her, Aoi abandons the atomocycles and commandeers the truck instead. The The two escape into the Meira tunnels, destroying several escort vehicles with a Thermian RPG. Major Rusalka attempts to stop them by crashing into the final convoy vehicle. Entradi and the Hex arrive. Entradi reveals that each repeated loop allows the man in the wall to further possess Rusalka, who is now wounded. He orders the Drifter to kill her. The Drifter hesitates. They refuse. Entradi scorns them for their childishness and decides to withdraw his help. The man in the wall suddenly recovers in its operator form and whisks both Entradi and the Drifter away, 4 hours and 52 minutes before the explosion. The Hex have seen Entradi's message. The odds are overwhelming. Quincy decides to bail. The rest choose to act. Arthur and Eleanor agree to attempt control over the tech rot despite Letitia's protests. Eleanor asks who will take point. One of the Hex members rushes to the zoo and battles Skaldra forces. Afterward, Eleanor enters alone. She fights tech rot pods and their defenders while the Hivemind attempts to influence her. After destroying the rot pods, the Hivemind Queen Legasite appears. It is invulnerable until its surrounding minions are destroyed. Each time it loses a health bar, it attempts to flee and summon reinforcements. The Legasite pleads for its life. Eleanor ignores its pleas and consumes the Hivemind Queen. The Drifter awakens aboard the ZARIMAN 10-0. The Indifference shows shadowy visions of Eleanor, Letitia, Quincy, Aoi, and Amir being killed one by one. The Indifference reveals something significant. It freely gave its powers to both the Operator and the Drifter. However, it resents the Orokin for what it describes as butchering and thievery of its fingers. It also specifically says that what the Operator has is a fraction of its abilities, meaning the difference in ability is vast. The Drifter eventually comes across Entradi standing over Arthur. Entradi shoots the Drifter with a Lex Prime. As the boy band online performs The Great Despair for New Year's Eve, the final hours play out. Control shifts to Amir. He, Arthur, and Aoi hold off Skaldra forces in a desperate defense. Control shifts to Letitia. She escorts Eleanor and her tech rot minions. Eleanor succumbs to the tech rot's influence and turns on Letitia. Control shifts to Quincy. He has returned with his neutralizer and provides covering fire. An H-04 Effervon tank shoots him down. Amir attempts to hack the nuclear reactor core. The locks release. Aoi tries to secure them in place but dies from overexerting her powers. Arthur battles the tech rot Babao descending on the core. Amir is fatally shot by Entradi. Arthur is left inside the reactor core, dying from radiation poisoning. Entradi commends the Hex for their sacrifice and prepares to leave for Tau. The Drifter declares they can save the Hex. Entradi retorts that saving them is impossible unless a personal bond has been formed. He shoots the Drifter. Collapsing, the Drifter reaches for the power of DUVIRI. The time loop extends. Instead of resetting to the day of the explosion, the loop now reaches back to the beginning of 1999. Lloyd discovers that the Drifter is now trapped in a yearly time loop within 1999. Holvania becomes accessible as a series of missions against Skaldra and tech rot forces. Kalimos waits in the back room. Before attempting New Year's Eve again, the Drifter must strengthen their bonds with the Hex. This requires reaching a certain standing with the Syndicate and achieving liked chemistry rank with all 6 members through chat interactions, gifts, or running bounties. In the true ending of Warframe 1999, the Drifter returns to the ZARIMAN 10-0 and wields their powers to rewrite fate itself, all while the Murmur fight desperately to stop them. One by one, each member of the Hex faces their moment of crisis, and one by one, the Drifter reaches through time to guide them through it. Eleanor resists the tech rot Hivemind, sparing Letitia. Quincy gains the foresight to neutralize the tank. Aoi realizes she can manually insert the control rods. Amir steadies himself and seizes control of the system, and Arthur, unable to escape the reactor chamber, is piloted to safety through transference. Entradi observes that none of this would have been possible without the Drifter having grown their heart. As the Hex celebrate their survival, a message flickers across the backroom's computer. The sequence is complete. History now follows a new course. In the present day, Lloyd reviews incoming data as a vessel stirs to life and flashes a peace sign. Arthur's final message to the Operator carries both gratitude and understanding. The time loop must be maintained. Without it, the Indifference would undo everything they fought to preserve. The cycle continues, not as a prison, but as a shield, ensuring their hard-won victory remains intact across all of time. Albrecht is said to be heading for Tau. The Old Peace. To recover buried memories, the operator descends into the Dark Refractory, a pool hidden within Albrecht's laboratory that plunges them deep into the recesses of their own mind. The quest opens with a mock battle between the operator and Adis, a sentient unlike any encountered before. Adis grew up believing what all sentients were taught. Their purpose was to construct the solar rails, bridge the planets, and one day reach the stars. Then, they would be scrapped for parts. A tool to be discarded once its usefulness expired. But everything changed when the sentients encountered the Xenoflora, flowers that granted the very sentients most of the community prior to believed the sentients had developed naturally. Without these flowers, sentients revert to a hive mind state, hungry for orders from any source. This revelation raises profound questions about everything we thought we knew about the sentients' past, and carries troubling implications about the Man in the Wall's influence. After all, the Void has done something like this before. Adis possesses a rare gift, the ability to heal not only other sentients but seemingly anything. After the training exercise concludes, the operator returns to Taran Academy, intended as the pillar of cooperative research between sentients and Orokin. Here the operator meets Archimedean Itzam, the first sentient ever granted that prestigious title. The operator learns that Adis has been chosen to represent the potential of his kind before the Seven Executors, second only to the godlike emperors of Orokin society. The operator and Adis deploy to assist Baldur's Grineer in their fight against the Dax separatists, led by Anarch Galastra. As they battle through enemy troops, Adis demonstrates his healing abilities. Eventually, the duo encounters a Dactylus stripped of Xenoflora by Galastra herself, reduced to following orders to kill them. The fight ends with the operator forced to destroy it. This act wounds Adis deeply, jarring the operator back to consciousness. The Indifference's voice echoes through the laboratory. Both the Lotus and the operator agree to press forward as Lloyd warns that the Murmur is breaching their defenses. Diving back in, the operator briefly glimpses Uriel, the future of the past, before returning to the academy without Adis. After Itzam questions the operator about Galastra's objectives, he urges them to find Adis. The two reconcile, reaffirming their bond in the wake of the Dactylus' death, then deploy to the Garmin Plains to interrogate the Lestratus. Throughout these battles, the Indifference taunts the operator, goading them to keep killing. The Lestratus reveal that Galastra is targeting a shuttle. After redeploying to Parental Center, the operator discovers this shuttle carries a palanquin bearing an executor. While defending this executor, the duo encounters the Devil Frame Uriel, restrained by sentience. Galastra launches one final assault with the Typhulus, attempting to assassinate the executor and shatter the peace treaty. When the operator discovers the executor within the palanquin is Ballas, they wake. Lloyd warns that the Cavia have reverted and the Indifference could trap the operator's mind in the past. Despite the danger, the operator continues. Back at the academy, Itzam cautions the operator not to confront Ballas. It might upset him. He pleads with Ballas to deal with Galastra, whose forces now occupy all the World Eater nurseries, facilities pivotal to creating Xenoflora. He also accuses Executor NATAH of aiding Galastra's rebellion. The operator and Adis depart for Tak-Am to attend their graduation ceremony. They are ambushed. Anarch Grineer, bred independently from the Prime Grineer, descended upon them. Itzam attempts to flee and is killed. In the aftermath of this tragedy, Margulis orders the operator and Adis to eliminate Galastra and destroy the World Eater. Upon arrival, the duo faces a Commandeer Protea Prime, a spectacle that proves the Tenno are not the only ones capable of wielding Warframes. The operator is wrenched back to the present to repel the Murmur invading the laboratory. Lamenting what must come next, the operator dives in one final time. The duo confronts a commandeered Caliban Prime, defeats it, and finally faces Galastra herself. They refuse to kill her. Instead, they input the self-destruct codes Margulis provided. The World Eater's destruction annihilates the Xenoflora and sends Adis spiraling into a frenzy of rage. He sets out to kill Margulis. With all the World Eaters gone, the Orokin could possess the means to strip the sentients of their free will entirely. While Adis uses the Hunhulis to battle the operator, the Grineer announce that the peace treaty is revoked. They declare war. The fight ends with Adis expending the last of his life to heal the operator, and something inside them breaks. The operator embarks on a mission of revenge, finally understanding the truth. The entire peace treaty was a setup. They return to the restrained devil frame and use it to fly to the academy, now reduced to ruins. Fighting through the wreckage, they search for Ballas and Margulis, consumed by rage. They confront Margulis, hoping desperately that she had no part in this betrayal. She tells them that they already know the answer. The operator collapses, slowly losing consciousness. Realizing what's happening, Margulis is going to make them forget. This erasure was likely intended to protect the operator from incurring the wrath of Ballas and the other executors. It may well explain why Ballas later approves her execution via the Jade Light, and it grants devastating new meaning to the hatred the sentients feel toward the Origin system. They tried to find peace. The Orokin responded by stealing their free will for daring to seek it. Upon awakening, the operator immediately apologizes to the Lotus. She tells them that now, perhaps, they may finally begin to heal. Hey there, everybody. So because of how big this video was, I wanted to address you guys as me. You know, not with the script or the kind of lore persona or anything like that. This is just me. I got some bullet points here, and I'm kind of going to just hit everything. Thank you. First of all, hitting 10,000 subscribers is no small feat, and I wish to acknowledge it as such. This video was by far the biggest project that I have ever completed to date. Hopefully, it will not be the biggest project that I ever create. Now, what does that mean? That's in reference to a dream that I've had for some time now. What it is, you guys will find out. But there's a certain point when you read the stories of so many other universes that you want to make your own. And that's something that I am pursuing in full force. Now, how can you support this? Is by supporting Warframe lore, actually. Supporting this channel. Giving me a platform to do this. About 90% of the people who watch my videos aren't subscribed. And that simple button click means a lot more than you think. So watching, commenting, please comment, because there is going to be another timeline coming out next year, January, and your comments will be the way I tell, hey, okay, change this, or hey, you guys want this. And the earlier I know that, the better it is, trust me. Currently, I don't really get paid to do this. And the reason being is because I, of course, invest more in this channel than it pays me. Now, that, I'm not sure how sustainable it is for now. It is something that I'm currently struggling with, but it is something that I also have a lot of passion for. And I don't plan on stopping anytime soon, so I will find any way to keep going.